I woke up to screaming. My eyes felt like someone glued them shut with cement, but the voices were very familiar. Too familiar. The kind of familiar that makes your stomach drop. I forced my eyes open, and yep, there it was. The courtyard of my family's mansion in the royal capital. A bunch of servants crowded around, and in the middle, my rabbit-eared maid Sherry was pinned to the ground, crying her eyes out. She's about 35, gorgeous in that mature, refined way, long silky hair, smooth skin, but right now her face was a mess of tears and terror. And my butler Fisher was whispering in my ear like a sewer rat. Young master, she stole cheese from the kitchen today? Tomorrow she'll steal your jewelry. I say we give her the hammer punishment. The hammer punishment. Exactly what it sounds like. You hang someone up and beat them with blunt objects until their insides turn to mush. No visible wounds on the outside. Just slow, agonizing death from the inside. Real classy stuff. Sherry heard that and literally wet herself in fear. Her mouth was stuffed with rags, so she couldn't even beg properly. And the old me? The previous version of me would have probably gone along with it. But see, here's the thing Fisher didn't know. I'm not that idiot anymore. I picked up a silver mithril hammer from the weapon rack. Sherry's eyes went dead with despair. The servants were watching, some gloating, some looking away. Then I swung that hammer right into Fisher's face. Boom. His entire face caved in. Red and white stuff everywhere. He dropped like a sack of garbage before he could even scream. Complete silence. Every single person in that courtyard froze. Their precious young master just killed his most trusted butler? The guy he relied on for everything? I walked over to Sherry, crouched down, pulled the rag out of her mouth. She looked at me with these wide, stunned eyes and whispered, "Young master." I picked her up, turned to the shadows, and gave my order to the Moon Guard, my family's elite soldiers hiding around the courtyard. Everyone who participated in this, and Fisher's entire family. Chop them up. Feed them to the dogs. Yes, young master. Black-clad female warriors materialized from the shadows like ghosts and descended on the gloating servants. Screams filled the courtyard, and I just walked away, carrying Sherry, not looking back. Next morning, rain tapping against the windows. I sat at my desk, sipping ice flower wine, feet up, staring at raindrops sliding down the glass. Because yeah, I remembered everything now. First life, internet-addicted teenager on Earth. Went out to buy cola. Got hit by the classic ice guy truck. Second life, this world. Except I'd already lived it once. All the way to the end. They called me, the last guardian of the North, the last blood of White Mane, the frigid roar, king of the far north the first. I fought endless waves of greenskins at the Empire's northern border until an assassin from the Parliament shoved a black blade through my chest. And now I'm back, 18 years old, day after my coming-of-age ceremony, where I received my territory. Back to what the bards like to call my spoiled little Lion King phase. Humanity in this world is one of the biggest factions on the continent, but united is not a word I'd use to describe us. When disaster strikes, sure, everyone huddles together. But the moment things calm down, it's all hyenas fighting over scraps. But this world isn't all terrible. Sherry, for instance. In my previous life, she didn't make it to the end with me. When the Stiven Ratmen launched a surprise attack on the north and wiped out every White Mane family member who stayed behind, it was Sherry who dragged my useless, middle-aged, still-a-wastrel self out alive. She could have escaped alone. She's a demi-human, faster and stronger, but she stayed with me. Then Fisher's family betrayed us. Our last moments together were in a cave. She was too badly wounded. I prayed to every god I could think of, slammed my forehead into the ground until blood ran down my face, begged and cried and pleaded. None of it mattered. Yeah, Fisher got off easy with that hammer. A timid knock at my door pulled me out of those memories. Come in. The carved wooden door opened, and Sherry stepped in wearing a fresh-made uniform, looking absolutely terrified. Why, young master? She was scared. But underneath the fear, there was this tiny, desperate spark of hope she was trying so hard to suppress. She'd been with me since I was 4. And the old me? He hated her demi-human blood, wouldn't touch her, wouldn't even look at her, treated her like garbage. But today I'd killed a man for her. And for the first time in 14 years, she saw something in my eyes that wasn't disgust or contempt. She wanted to believe it was real, but she didn't dare. For someone like her, even calling it a luxury would be too generous. Come here. Yes, Sherry shuffled toward me like a prisoner approaching the executioner. I looked at her properly for the first time since coming back. Compared to my memories, she was noticeably younger, mid-30s, lop-eared rabbit demi-human. Curvy figure that her black and white maid outfit was doing absolutely nothing to hide. Her big floppy ears kept trying to perk up with hope, then drooping back down from lack of confidence. She was terrified of me, and honestly, she had every reason to be. In my previous life, on this exact day, I sided with Fisher. I didn't even care enough to pick a side. Sherry simply didn't register as a person to me back then. After that night, Fisher dragged her to his room every single evening. During the day, she'd clean the house covered in bruises, flinching if anyone even said hello. And still, when everything went to hell, she threw herself in front of me. Funny how humans only figure out who truly cares about them when they've already hit rock bottom. I stared at her for a while without saying anything, which only made her more nervous. Her hands were wringing behind her back, breathing all choppy and uneven. Kneel, yes, her body moved before her brain could catch up. She dropped to her knees instantly, face pressed to the floor. She heard me stand up, take off my coat, walk behind her. Then, the sound of a sword being drawn. I could practically feel her soul leave her body. When a young master calls a maid into his room, it's only ever for two things: using her body or punishing it. And the sword sound clearly pointed to option B. She didn't resist, though, just buried her head lower and trembled. And in that moment, her mind drifted to old memories. Back when she was an orphan in Imperial Experiment Lab 47, subjected to inhumane demi-human modifications. She failed the final test and got labeled as a defective product. The night before they were going to dissect her alive, she was crying in a corner, and a little noble boy visiting the lab with his parents saw her through the glass. That boy was me. I brought her to the White Mane household, made her my personal maid. For a while, things were actually good between us. Sunshine and flowers and all that wholesome stuff. She prayed to the 7 gods every day in gratitude. Then my mother was assassinated by a demi-human, and I took it out on every demi-human around me, especially the one closest. Her trembling slowly stopped. She closed her eyes, accepted whatever was coming. But the sword didn't come crashing down. I placed it gently on her left shoulder. Single knee, Sherry. This is your investiture ceremony. Her head snapped up. Those big obedient eyes were wide as dinner plates. By the name of the Northern Guardian's bloodline, I, Ron Whitemane, direct member of House Whitemane of the Two-Cent Kingdom within the 7 Kingdoms Federation, hereby grant you citizenship of the Imperial Federation. From this day, you are no longer a slave. By the name of House Whitemane, I, Ron Whitemane, second son of the current generation, sole heir of the Frostwinter Divine Sword lineage, hereby bestow upon you the surname, Frostsong. From today, you shall serve as my head personal maid, until your soul returns to the frozen earth. Rain hammered the windows. Wind howled through the pines. Sparks popped from the fireplace. Sherry heard none of it. As a demi-human, she had no citizenship, no surname, no legal identity whatsoever. And Frostsong, that's the surname reserved for vassals of the Whitemane Frostwinter sword lineage. Only families of knights I personally appoint get that honor. She completely short-circuited. Her delicate hands were unconsciously twisting her skirt, her beautiful eyes trembling nonstop. I sheathed the sword, leaned down, and pinched her soft little cheek. Go get my going-out clothes ready. Yes, she stood up in a daze, so confused she literally forgot which foot to walk with first. I gave her a nice smack on her plump rear to reboot her system. Very satisfying. Excellent feedback. Hurry up. Make your young master late, and I'll spank you for real. Yes. Young master. Her face turned completely crimson, and she bowed about 15 times before scrambling out of the room. Still as easy to fluster as my previous life. Gonna have to work on that. I smiled, then focused my attention inward. A bronze ancient book materialized in my hand. This was my talent that awakened after I became a lord in my previous life. I call it the Throne Codex. I pulled up Sherry's page. Name, Sherry Frostsong. Race, human, demi-human, twin, ancient species. Twin, ancient, species. Ancient species is already the absolute top tier of demi-human bloodlines. And Sherry is a twin ancient species, 2 bloodlines in one body. Her first bloodline is the full moon divine rabbit with an epic tier talent called trait cultivation. Her second is the Blood Moon Great Red Wolf with an epic tier talent called Primal Frenzy. The problem? The two bloodlines conflict with each other, so neither talent can manifest. But that trait cultivation talent, absolute game changer for territory management. See, in this world, territories are powered by fairies. Fairies make farmland fertile, rivers magical, mountains special. Every lord needs them. But 99% of fairies are attributeless. They just provide basic nutrients and mana to the soil. And 99% of demi-humans with cultivation talents can only speed up fairy growth a tiny bit. Sherry's talent doesn't just speed things up. It can alter a fairy's elemental attribute entirely. Ice fairies, fire fairies, wind thunder fairies, moonlight fairies, the stuff of legends. Imagine a moonlight fairy creating a moon spring that doubles the potency of medicinal herbs. Or wind thunder fairies on a cliff attracting griffins and storm eagles to nest there. Every lord on the continent would kill for this ability. Of course, the stronger the talent, the harder the awakening conditions. Most haven't even been researched yet. But for me, not a problem. The Throne Codex had a section called Destiny Guidance. Twin ancient species are nearly undetectable before awakening, and the conditions are absurdly difficult to meet naturally. But, in the capital of the Two-Cent Kingdom, for the one who writes the destinies of others, all conditions are within reach. This afternoon, a cargo ship from the north will dock at Pearl Harbor in the South District. Inside a fancy red jewelry box, you'll find a withered branch from a silver moon beastbone treasure tree. Grind it to powder, mix with moon spring water, have her drink it, a northern cargo ship. This afternoon, wait, isn't that MY family's ship? My eyebrow went up. Right on cue, Sherry knocked on the door with my clothes. Her face was still bright red, eyes full of excitement and disbelief. Those pink ears perked up for the first time. Very cute. Very tempting. But let's be real. Flirting is fun and all, but compared to logging in and opening loot boxes, not even close. I checked the clock, grabbed the cloak from her hands, threw it on, and pulled her downstairs to the stables. The stable hand's jaw hit the floor as I lifted Sherry onto the horse by her waist, then swung up behind her. She felt my chest against her back, saw my hands reach around to hold the reins against her stomach, and basically forgot how to breathe. Her face went red from cheeks to ear tips. "Young master." She started stammering something nervous and self-deprecating, but I just wrapped my left arm around her soft waist and snapped the reins with my right. "No talking. We're in a hurry. That single word hit her like a thunderbolt. Her whole body shivered, and those gentle eyes went from disbelief to something warm and clingy. Sherry will be good." The capital was absolutely packed today. The whole medieval-style main street was wall-to-wall people, the crowd stretching all the way down to the city's biggest port, Pearl Harbor in the South District. Seabirds screaming overhead, ships of every shape and size from every race docked along the shore. The docks were pure chaos in the best way. Dwarf warriors hugging prostitutes and chugging ale while bragging about their adventures. Minotaur shamans mumbling, "Mother Earth blesses you," while trying to recruit people into their Earth religion. There were even a few gnome-built airships floating overhead, steam engines humming, adding that perfect blend of exotic and street market energy. I rode through it all with Sherry, sea breeze in my face. We rounded a bustling fountain plaza, and there it was, the White Lion Auction House. My family's business. Very high-end establishment. A White Lion banner hung over the entrance, gold-trimmed edges gleaming in the sunlight. The clientele matched the decor. European-style nobles with not a single hair out of place. High-rank adventurers. Mages leaving trails of magic stardust when they walked. Warriors with sword hilts encrusted in magic crystals. Hooded rangers with massive bows on their backs. My setup of 2 people on 1 horse looked a bit modest by comparison, but the moment I pulled up to the entrance, a gnome in a suit and tie came sprinting out. "Oh, second young master. You've finally arrived. Your most loyal servant Housemill offers you his sincerest greetings." Housemill burner flask. Face full of excitement, voice carrying that signature gnome's squeaky comedic pitch, but his bow was absolutely textbook perfect. Every customer near the entrance turned to stare at the silver-haired young man, helping a rabbit-eared woman off his horse. "Young master? He's from the main White Main line." "No way. How does someone like that travel without guards? Must be real. Today's farewell day, and I heard the Frostwinter Sword Branch's young master just came of age this year. Whispers everywhere. Admiration. All. A few noble girls in Lolita dresses on the steps were practically shooting hearts from their eyes. Can't blame them for not recognizing me. I normally lived up in the Northern Territories. Only came to the capital recently for the coming-of-age ceremony and today's farewell day. But everyone knew House Mill Burner Flask, the manager of the White Lion Auction House and a Grand Magus. His family had served the Whitemane main line for generations. And the Whitemane family? Let me paint the picture. 1,000 years ago, the first Whitemane got his engagement broken off, publicly humiliated. He took a pioneer decree, 1 man, 1 horse, 1 sword, and rode north alone. 700 years and 9 generations later, the White Lion's roar echoed across the frozen wastes. Every race learned to fear us. The Whitemane banner flew at the peak of the northern frontier. Most noble houses consider having 1 Grand Duke in their history as top-tier prestige. House Whitemane had 3 branches, Lionheart, Frostwinter, and Frostwing, each led by figures of that caliber. Sure, the Frostwinter Sword and Frostwing branches had declined by now, but the Lionheart Prince branch was still going strong, putting our family just half a step below the 7 royal houses. I tossed the reins to a valet without a second thought and followed House Mill toward the entrance. Sherry, on the other hand, was barely breathing, especially when she noticed the noble girls staring at her, eyes full of undisguised judgment and contempt. Her pink-white ears drooped flat against her head. She'd never gone out with me before. She was supposed to be scrubbing laundry in the back courtyard right now, not walking into a golden palace like this. Her big eyes were glued to her own feet, body wanting to move closer to me, but too scared to actually do it, fingers death gripping the edge of her skirt. I stuck my elbow out toward her. If you're scared, hold on to me. She froze solid for a second. Those gentle doe eyes went wide. Then, watching me turn back to chat with House Mill like it was nothing, something shifted in her expression. Timid but determined, she looped her arm through mine. Thank you, young master. And look, I'm not going to lie. When a curvy, rabbit-eared beauty presses up against your arm, you notice. My entire left arm was engulfed in warm softness. I allowed myself a small smile, but there was business to handle. No time for flirting with my lovely maid. We followed House Mill into a magic-powered glass elevator. As it descended, I chatted with him while scanning the scene through the glass. This branch of the White Lion Auction House was the capital location, so naturally, it was way bigger than the others. 4 floors above ground, 7 below. The upper floors handled normal commerce. The underground levels, black market trading, bounty postings, slave auctions, and professional-grade equipment sales. The atmosphere was electric. Starting from basement level 2, the entire space opened up into a massive hollow coliseum structure. Ring-shaped corridors on every level packed with spectators leaning over railings, and in the center, a giant fighting arena. Right now, some bald martial monk was going at it with a spider demon the size of a small hill. The monk dropped into a horse stance, threw a devastating punch, and a chi blast shaped like an eastern dragon rocketed forward. The spider demon spat silk and leaped to dodge. The blast missed its target and came flying straight at our elevator. It got within 1 fist's distance from my face through the glass before a pale purple magic barrier materialized out of thin air and absorbed the whole thing. The crowd erupted. I raised an eyebrow. A dragon elephant monk? That's a rare class. What's someone like that doing in an underground fighting pit? House Mill explained. Oh, young master. Normally these types wouldn't bother. But today is farewell day. All the noble heirs who've decided to become pioneer lords are gathering in the capital to recruit expedition teams. I see. That tracked. Today was the 2nd day after the coming-of-age ceremony, farewell day. The Two-Cent Kingdom holds a coming-of-age ceremony every 3 years. Noble heirs between 18 and 21 can participate, and each one receives a pioneer decree, basically a permit to go claim and develop unclaimed territory. Of course, not everyone who gets a decree actually uses it. The kingdom's been around for almost 1,000 years. All the good land was claimed generations ago. What's left is either middle-of-nowhere wasteland or dangerous border territory next to hostile races. In my previous life, I never bothered becoming a lord. Just stayed home browsing in par like a shut-in. Had no idea farewell day was this lively. As for these professional fighters, humans have 13 base classes: warrior, priest, mage, warlock, druid, barbarian, shaman, monk, paladin, ranger, thief, bard, and artificer. Each one gives you a unique growth path and unlocks special class skills. And those are just the base versions. Priests branch into life priests, war priests, dragon priests. Monks split into dragon elephant monks, drunken fist monks, mistweaver monks. Rangers can become wilderness rangers, deadeye snipers, even beastmaster hunters. Hidden classes on top of hidden classes, plus second and third advancements for all of them. This world is stupidly complex and stupidly fun. But here's the catch. You pick a class, but the class also picks you. The stronger the class, the higher the talent requirement. That's where demi-humans come in. They're not a separate race. They're humans who got modified by alchemical experiments. Most of them are war orphans, kidnapped as children and used as lab rats. The whole purpose? Breed better tools. Humans with enhanced talents who can handle more powerful classes. Take fairy cultivation, for example. It's a basic druid skill, and every lord needs fairies for their territory. But not everyone has the talent to become a druid. Big problem. Until years ago, some researcher accidentally discovered that fusing humans with rabbit-type magical beast bloodlines didn't do much for combat ability and actually shortened their lifespan significantly, but it made them way more compatible with the druid class. Druid, huh? The elevator reached the bottom floor, the VIP level. We walked into an office. I handed my coat to Sherry and turned to House Mel. Does the shop have a Fairy Society Druid class change scroll right now? Fairy Druid? House Mel blinked. He snuck a glance at Sherry hanging up my coat by the door, then chose his words carefully. We do have the scroll, but young master, the family rules. I waved him off. I know the rules. Just get it. And bring a bottle of top-grade Moon Spring water. Also, there's a family cargo ship arriving today. There's a branch from a Silver Moon Beastbone treasure tree on board. Get that for me too. Yes. House Mill will handle it immediately. He scrambled to dispatch his people, though I could see the confusion in his eyes. See, the Whitemane family is a top-tier noble house, and we're very united. But the first Whitemane went north alone to build everything from scratch. Family tradition says that when a young lion comes of age and decides to become a lord, the family won't give too much help in the early years. Of course, not too much help is relative when you're talking about a ducal-level family. That Fairy Society class change scroll I just asked for, it's a hidden branch of the Druid class. Precious enough to cripple an earl's finances, bankrupt a viscount, and be enshrined as a family heirloom by a baron. Even high-rank professionals only maybe find one in some dangerous dungeon ruin, and it'd spark a bloodbath between guilds. But as the sole heir of the Frostwinter Sword branch, even though our branch has declined, the Lionheart Prince branch was still willing to provide me 3 items of this caliber as startup capital. Family and honor. The Whitemane motto. Still, second young master, are you planning to use this scroll on? That maid? Housemel's big, curious gnome eyes darted toward Sherry. Fair question from his perspective. Rabbit demi-humans are natural fits for the druid class, but you want to match elite bloodlines with elite classes for maximum power. And to him, Sherry was just a regular lop-eared rabbit demi-human, totally unworthy of something as rare as the fairy druid hidden class. If only he knew. He worked fast, though. Within minutes, he brought back the class change scroll and a precious wooden box containing the Silver Moon Beastbone treasure tree branch. Everyone out. Kill the surveillance magic eyes, too. I cleared the room, had House Mill set up a magic formation, and told Sherry to grind the tree branch into powder. Then I sat down on the fancy sofa and unrolled the scroll on the coffee table. Unlike regular druid scrolls that glow with plain blue light, this fairy druid scroll was something else entirely. The runes were denser and more intricate, the magical energy thicker and heavier, with faint golden radiance shimmering across its surface. The artwork was completely different too. Normal druid scrolls just show a wreath around a bear paw or leopard claw. This one had a wreath where every flower bud had a tiny colorful fairy floating above it, and in the center was a sapling of an ancient tree. Like comparing a static JPG to an animated GIF. Is that a hidden class scroll? It's so pretty, Sherry peeked over while still grinding the branch with a little wooden mortar. Are you giving this to Mike, young master? Mike? My eyebrow went up. Mike was a lackey I used to rely on. Well, rely on is generous. He was the guy who arranged my partying and debauchery. In my previous life, he conveniently betrayed me during the escape from the north and nearly got me killed on a collapsing bridge. I shook my head with a smile. Not Mike. I'm giving this to someone very important to me. Someone very important to young master. Sherry tilted her head, eyebrows furrowed in deep thought. This clueless cuteness was adorable. She thought about it for ages without once considering herself. I grabbed her little chin with a grin. Dummy, it's for you, huh? And me. Me? Her brain crashed. Both ears shot straight up like antennae. She pointed at herself in total disbelief. Yes. Now go sit in the magic formation. The mana guidance will make your transformation smoother. Knowing this adorable airhead needed a minute to process. I just laughed and pushed her toward the formation. Why, young master, I can't do it. Zero confidence. She was so nervous she was about to cry, turning back to look at me with watery eyes. Come on, don't be this insecure. While she stared at me with those big round eyes, I pulled her into my arms and kissed her. Her lips were soft and full, plump in that perfect pillowy way. Very nice. I unconsciously tightened my arm around her waist. Maximum compression. Outstanding. Her gentle eyes went completely round with shock. But as she remembered everything I'd done for her today, feeling my warm breath on her face, her gaze gradually softened. She didn't know why I'd changed so much. But she relaxed completely into me, arms wrapping around my waist, eyes melting with sweetness. Just as she was about to completely lose herself in the moment, I pulled back. She was left looking up at me with her head tilted, lips still slightly parted, tongue peeking out, eyes glistening like morning dew. Very pure, very dangerous combination. I was feeling it too, but the magic formation was already glowing. I pinched her cheek. Not nervous anymore, right? Young master. You're so mean. She buried her blushing face in my chest. The pink had spread all the way down her neck. But she looked up with determination. Sherry. Sherry will do her best. Go for it. I've got your back no matter what. I gave her soft rear a pat and watched her walk into the magic formation with a smile. Though inside, I felt a pang. This timid, insecure woman. In my previous life, she somehow found the courage to fight an entire army of rat men just to save me. Also, she seems to really enjoy being ordered around. My eyebrow went up. I've read enough books to know there's a certain type of person who gets a thrill from being dominated. Heh, interesting woman. I guided her to wash down the powdered silver moon branch with moon spring water, then nodded to Housemel. He understood instantly, channeling the ambient mana to activate the fairy druid class change scroll. The scroll erupted with golden light, and every scrap of mana in the room went nuts. Housemel's office doubled as his personal training chamber, so the walls were already studded with colorful rare magic stones. Combined with the six-pointed star formation he'd set up, mana was flooding toward Sherry like ink spreading through water. Now, druids don't actually use mana. Their thing is nature affinity, not magic affinity. But the mana wasn't for the class change itself. It was working with the silver moon beastbone powder to trigger her ancient species bloodline. The fairy druid is expensive and talent-hungry, sure, but it's still just a first advancement class. A twin ancient species could digest it like a light snack. And right on cue, as the mana kept washing over her and the powder kicked in, Sherry's body started changing. A layer of black gunk, impurities, toxins, general biological garbage, oozed out of her pores. The mana hardened it into a crust that cracked and fell away, revealing skin underneath that was smooth as a boiled egg. More importantly, her droopy pink-white ears gradually stood up for the first time, the fur becoming finer and more refined, with tiny sparkles of moonlight glowing around the edges. And on the back of her right hand, an ice-blue full moon pattern was slowly surfacing. Oh, good heavens! That energy signature. Ancient species. Housemel's eyes nearly popped out of his skull, and the little gnome literally bounced 3 feet in the air. He didn't recognize the full moon divine rabbit specifically. It's absurdly rare, but as the manager of the White Lion auction house, he knew an ancient species awakening when he felt one. Could the second young master have spotted her potential all along? He sneaked a glance at me with completely new eyes. Sure, I used to be a useless rich kid, but in his worldview, that wasn't really a flaw for a noble. He'd seen plenty of late bloomers in his long career. Life is like ocean waves, peaks and valleys. Starting fast doesn't mean finishing first. And he'd clearly noticed my entire vibe was different today. Has the young master awakened a Lord talent? That thought really got him going. Lord is technically humanity's 14th class, but unlike the others, there's no class change scroll for it. No clear advancement path at all. You need two things, a legally recognized territory, or one you're about to receive, and genuine resolve to become a lord. Plenty of people inherit lordship through bloodline, but those are just titles and power. No class skills, no unique lord talent. The fact that I'd apparently awakened a lord ability before even confirming my territory meant my ambition and talent were both overflowing. The old gnome's eyes started watering. Why, young master? Sniff, sniff. What? Why are you making that disgusting face all of a sudden? This old servant. All right, knock it off. I need you to handle something for me. Turning around to find a teary-eyed gnome staring at me with pure devotion was not a pleasant surprise. But I understood the emotion behind it. The Frostwinter Sword branch finally showing signs of revival after all these years. I glanced at Sherry, still deep in her transformation, then walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the arena below. Sherry being an ancient species, and me awakening a lord talent. Keep both of those sealed. Even from great-grandfather and my brother. If they sense something and insist on asking, tell them to come ask me directly. Face-to-face only. No third parties present. No letters, no messages, no communication of any kind. But young master, why? You don't need to know the details right now. Just do it. And if anyone asks about me becoming a lord, tell them I got bored of White Lion City and wanted to go play around outside. This old servant understands. Housemill sucked in a sharp breath, and his whole demeanor flipped to dead serious. I didn't spell it out, but he caught the implication immediately. There might be a traitor in the family. The thought alone made his scalp tingle. But who? And why? He didn't understand. And I wasn't about to explain. Two events defined my previous life more than anything else. First, the black blade from the federal parliament that killed me right before my rebirth. I still didn't know exactly who was behind it, but that wasn't urgent. The parliament backstabbed me because they wanted to stop a non-royal from crowning himself king in the north. The Seven Kingdoms royal families all share a common ancestor. Being a prince and being a true king are very different things. As long as I didn't cross that line, I had time. The second event was the real nightmare. The Blood Knight. The Stiven rat men, not cute humans with mouse ears, but actual giant intelligent rat monsters standing upright, launched a full-scale surprise attack on White Lion City. Nearly wiped out the entire Whitemane family. But here's the thing. The Ratman's underground tunnel network is a continental superpower on the same level as the human Seven Kingdoms Federation. They're at the very top of the food chain. But between the Ratmen in the northwest and us humans in the southeast sits another top-tier power, the Silver Mountain Ogre Warband. For an ocean of Ratmen to cross the Silver Mountains under the ogres' noses and reach the north? Almost impossible, unless the ogres were bribed or allied with the rats. And the timing of the attack was surgically precise. It happened during the exact few days when every top Whitemane fighter was away from White Lion City. Each one was tracked down and ambushed separately. External enemies and internal traitors. My brow furrowed, but honestly, the pressure wasn't that bad this time around. 1. I'd been reborn with full foreknowledge. Not omniscient, but I had absolute early warning on both threats. 2. I was young again, with growth potential that far exceeded my previous life's late redemption arc. And the Blood Knight was still years away. The smart move was to stay off the radar. Find a territory nobody cared about, develop it quietly, and dig for the truth. I pulled out my Pioneer Decree scroll and handed it to Housemill. Exchange this for the deed to Winterhold Valley. Winterhold Valley, his eyebrow shot up. Trading and exchanging Pioneer Decrees between nobles was perfectly legal. Not everyone uses theirs. But Winterhold Valley wasn't exactly prime real estate. The Seven Kingdoms map looks roughly like a big, irregular winter melon lying on its side. The imperial city of Farmar sits at the center, surrounded by the Six Kings' territories. 3 concentric walls ring the whole thing. The Wall of Lothar, the Wall of Roland, and the Wall of Maria. Beyond the walls, the frontier splits into 4 borders: north, south, east, west. Inside the walls, 7 nations ruled by the first emperor's direct descendants. 1 emperor, 6 kings, plus assorted noble territories underneath. Outside the walls, for Grand Duke princes. Lionheart Prince, Whitemane controls the north from White Lion City, also called White King City. Winterhold Valley sits at the far western edge of the north, bordering both the west, controlled by Grand Duchess Rosa, the Queen of 10,000 Flowers, and the Silver Mountains held by the ogres. Problems? Several. The Lion family values strength and glory. The Flower family values prosperity and elegance. We've never exactly been best friends. Also, Winterhold Valley is incredibly remote, tucked into the southern foothills of the Silver Mountains. Beautiful 3-sided valley with a lake, easy to defend, kind of a hidden paradise. But it's crawling with goblins, trolls, and magical beasts, and the resources aren't anything special. There is a dormant volcano inside the territory where legend says an ancient dragon was buried, but 1,000 years of searching turned up nothing. The legend was officially classified as a myth ages ago. The second young master is choosing Winterhold Valley as his territory. Housemill didn't understand, but he didn't question it. He dispatched someone to process the exchange immediately. Good man. The Burnerflask family had served the Whitemans for generations. In my previous life, every last one of them died defending White Lion City. Absolutely trustworthy. But I still didn't explain my choice. Sometimes not telling someone is how you protect them. Because I knew something nobody else did. Ancient dragons. In the current era, dragons are still one of the continent's strongest factions, mostly living in the dragon airspace over the chaotic Star Sea. But today's dragons? They're just the degraded descendants of ancient dragons. The current era is called the Golden Age by human scholars, an age of rising nations and clashing races. The era before this one was called the Ancient Dragon Age, when ancient dragons ruled everything. Scholars still hadn't figured out why ancient dragons declined and degraded, but their power spoke for itself. And I knew, underneath that mythical, dormant volcano in Winterhold Valley, lay a sealed, 9-level ancient dragon grand cemetery. Winterhold Valley. Taking it would give me a bridge connecting the northern and western borders, a front-row seat to monitor the Silver Mountain ogres, and access to that massive ancient dragon cemetery hidden underneath. This territory had to be mine. The good news? In my previous life, the person who claimed Winterhold Valley was some minor noble's descendant. Dealing with someone at that level was child's play. Right on cue, a knock at the door. I nodded to Housemill. He raised his palm and sent a wave of mana toward Sherry, still mid-transformation, cloaking her in an illusion spell. The servant walked in, saw nothing unusual, and bowed. Young master, Baron Doran has agreed to exchange pioneer decrees, but he requests an audience with you. Wants to meet me? Eyebrow up. Send him in. A pot-bellied fat man waddled through the door moments later. Your Lord Doranfulcow? Descendant of Durando, the famous blue sword knight from the Gulf lands. I gave him a once-over. The man immediately dropped to his knees like his legs were made of noodles. Lord is far too generous. It's my honor that young Master Ron would see someone as lowly as me. And yes, Durando was indeed my ancestor. He once had the privilege of feeding horses for the Frostwinter sword for 2 whole days. He kept sneaking hopeful glances at me while he talked. I got the picture immediately. The Frostwinter sword was my ancestor, humanity's greatest knight of his era. His statues stand in every Royal Knight Academy across the 7 kingdoms. This guy's ancestor fed the man's horse for 2 days, and now his descendant was trying to cash in that connection. Not exactly a deep bond. But he was giving me Winterhold Valley, so I didn't mind throwing him a bone. I skipped the pleasantries. What do you want in exchange? I wouldn't dare. He'd just stood up, but immediately crashed back to his knees, terrified. Doran would never dream of making demands. The exchange is already agreed upon. It's just, I humbly beg young Master Ron to grant me a Northern Maria Wall trade pass, so my family's merchant caravans can travel freely. A Maria Wall trade pass? Simple enough. It lets merchant convoys pass through the northern section of the Maria Wall. Requires dual stamps from both Toussaint Kingdom and the Whitemane family. Not hard for a noble to obtain. Kingdoms want trade caravans bringing in tax revenue and goods. You offended someone? Doran fidgeted nervously. I may have accidentally insulted Viscount Franz of the Wit territory at a wine party. But I assure you, it's nothing major. Otherwise I'd never dare ask. Got it. I'll have House Mill write you a letter. Take it along with gifts and go apologize in person. Thank you, young Master Ron. Thank you. He kowtowed like a woodpecker hammering a tree, practically melting with relief. Apparently my old reputation preceded me, spoiled, arrogant, aggressive. When Whitemane's servants showed up at his door, he nearly had a heart attack. He definitely wasn't expecting me to be this reasonable. I was wrapping up the small talk and about to show him out when something through the floor-to-ceiling window caught my eye. Down by one of the side arenas, a few workers were carrying a stretcher. On it lay a female swordsman with round, fuzzy bare ears on top of her head. The ears were gray-white like frost, fluffy and round. Her hair matched, a faded, battle-worn gray-white. She was tall. Even from this distance I could tell she was pushing 6'3", maybe 6'4". Long legs, slim waist, oversized beauty. But she was in terrible shape, drenched in blood, a gaping hole torn in her right side big enough to see her internal organs. Must have come from a death match on one of the other stages. Her face was striking, cold, beautiful, but a sword scar ran vertically across her left eye, sealing it shut. Her remaining right eye was a deep twilight purple-gray. The instant I saw that eye color, my pupils contracted. I whipped around to House Mill. What's her name? He blinked, caught off guard, and was about to send someone to check when Doran piped up nervously beside me. Young master, is there some problem with her? His fat body flinched. She's called Kakashu. She's my slave. But I only bought her at the slave market yesterday. If she did something wrong before that, it has nothing to do with me. Poor guy thought she'd offended me somehow and was panicking. But the next second, a fat bag of gold coins flew into his arms. That slave belongs to me now. House Mill, see our guest out, then bring her to me immediately. Yes, young master. Down in the corridor, things were going badly for Kakashu. Am I dying? She coughed up bloody organ fragments as the stretcher bounced with each step. Her purple-gray eye stared blankly at the magical light pillars on the ceiling. The wound was agonizing. Normally, as a combat-type demi-human, she could have survived this. But 3 consecutive death matches in one day had drained her. Too much blood lost. Injuries stacked on injuries. Her body was getting cold. Her blood was slowing down. This beauty's not gonna make it, one of the stretcher carriers said. Probably not. Got clawed clean through by a poison wolf rat. Even if a priest heals the wound, without a moon antidote bell to purge the toxin, she's got days at best. Shame too. Heard her owner signed a contract with the Alchemy Association. 3 consecutive fights. If she won, fine. If she lost, her corpse goes to them for research. The Alchemy Association? Damn it. If she wasn't poisoned, we could have had some fun with her. But with her looking like this, you'd probably catch something just sticking a fork in. 2 sailor-looking workers complaining about their missed opportunity to assault a dying woman. Real class acts. Kakashu heard every word. Her expression didn't change. As a demi-human who was never chosen by a noble during childhood, she'd always known how her story would end. This is, as far as I go, I just wonder, how Dodoro will survive in this world alone. An orphanage flashed through her mind. A little girl with puppy ears standing at the gate. Black blood veins were already creeping up Kakashu's cheeks, and the thought of that girl sent her into another violent coughing fit. What the? These are my new pants. Black blood splattered onto the tall, skinny worker's leg. He exploded with rage, dropped his end of the stretcher, and stomped directly on her wound. NGH, still making noise? Shut your mouth. His face twisted with cruelty as he raised his foot to stomp her face next. Just your typical bottom feeder who got his kicks bullying people even weaker than himself. Pain flickered through Kakashu's eye. And then, a magic missile screamed in from the side. The tall man didn't even get to react before the impact drove him into the corridor wall. Dead on the spot. Who? The fat worker spun around in terror and found a small gnome already standing beside him. House Mill. And right now, he looked nothing like the cheerful servant who'd been bouncing around me earlier. Draped in his grand magus robes, hands clasped behind his back, radiating the kind of silent authority that made people's knees buckle. The fat worker saw House Mill and face-planted into the ground so fast he left a dent. Lord Housemill, Housemill didn't even dignify him with words, just raised his right hand. The fat man instantly turned into an actual squealing pig. Instant cast polymorph? He's a high-rank mage. You don't know Housemill? He's the legendary Grand Archmage who once seduced a silver dragon. The spectators in the nearby stands were going wild with gossip. Kakashu, lying on the ground, was equally stunned. Housemill casually froze her wound shut with a flick of his hand, then gave her a polite bow. Miss Kakashu, my esteemed young master wishes to see you. Please follow me. Where am I? Kakashu was dizzy and disoriented when they carried her into the office, but she forced her eyes open. The terrifying Grand Archmage from moments ago was now standing respectfully to the side like a butler. And next to him, a young man in fine clothes stood gazing out the window. Not especially tall, a bit thin, but the presence radiating off him was suffocating. And that gray-gold medium-length hair. Her heart slammed. In the Two-Cent Kingdom, everyone knows what gray-gold hair means. White mane. Why would the White Mane family want me? Her brain completely froze. Then I turned around, and our eyes met. Surprised? Why, yes. She tried to struggle off the stretcher to kneel. Demi-humans are trained from birth to bow to nobility. But I just waved my hand and had the servants move her to the sofa for treatment. Skip the formalities. Before we start healing you, sign this contract. From today, you have nothing to do with the Fulcao family. Her purple-gray, I went full clueless puppy mode. She looks cold and aloof, but that's actually just because she's not the sharpest sword in the armory. She's slow to process things, so she talks less, and people mistake that for being cool. But her beast blood instincts were screaming at her. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. She clumsily picked up a pen and signed everywhere the servants pointed. The purple-gray-eyed queen. Today keeps delivering surprises. See, demi-humans have the lowest social status imaginable. But where there's oppression, there's rebellion. Shortly before my death in my previous life, a special organization appeared in the Western Territories, the Black Goat Circle. Every single member was a persecuted, beast-eared woman, and their leader was known as the Queen of the Purple-Gray Eyes. I never dealt with them personally. I was busy fighting in the North while they operated in the West. But once, returning from a campaign where I'd crushed the Silver Mountain Ogres, I spotted a black dragon circling a snowy peak in the distance. I was reaching for my bow when a woman with a massive sword leaped from that mountaintop and beheaded the dragon in a single stroke. In the howling northern blizzard, I caught one glimpse of this cold-faced dragon-slaying swordswoman. And what stuck with me most wasn't her unique purple-gray eyes. It was those cute, round, fuzzy bear ears. While I was lost in that memory, a servant whispered something to Housemill. His face dropped immediately. Young master, we have a problem. What? Moon antidote bells. There's none in the entire city. Bad news. Moon antidote bells aren't particularly rare herbs, but they specifically counter ratmen plague toxins. Since ratmen hadn't been seen inside the walls for nearly a century, no shop in Two-Cent bothered stocking them. The poison wolf rat in the arena today was just some specimen the dwarven caravans caught in the Seven Peak Mountains. My brow furrowed. And then, the mana in the room went berserk. A swirling vortex of magical energy howled through the air. Housemill and I both snapped our heads toward the seemingly empty corner where the illusion spell was hiding the magic formation. The mana settled, and Sherry materialized. I blinked. She was still Sherry, but upgraded. Her skin was luminous white, practically glowing like moonlight itself. Her figure had shifted subtly too. Chest still the same impressive volume, but her waist had gotten slimmer, her rear higher and rounder, and those long legs had stretched even further, elevating her entire presence. She'd gone from soft, cute housewife to elegant European noblewoman. But the moment she opened her eyes and saw me, that sweet, obedient smile bloomed right across her face. Young master, how do you feel? I walked over and started rubbing her ears out of curiosity. Her cheeks flushed pink and her shoulders hunched shyly, but she didn't pull away. She nuzzled closer to me. Sherry feels so light and energized. I'll definitely be able to wash your clothes much cleaner from now on. Hee hee. You idiot. I didn't give you that scroll so you could do laundry better. I rolled my eyes with a grin. Tell me what skills you awakened. Class change scrolls are essentially inheritance scrolls. During absorption, knowledge floods into the user's brain, and combined with the scroll's energy, It activates the user's innate talents into class-match skills. Sherry pursed her lips happily. It'd take forever to explain. But I overheard your conversation with Mr. Housemill just now. Young master, could someone fetch me a moonlight bell? Moonlight bell. I knew where this was going instantly. Moonlight bell and moon antidote bell belong to the same botanical family. Both have detoxifying properties, just different subspecies. If Sherry was asking for one now, the answer was obvious. The servants brought one quickly. I cleared the room. Under my expectant gaze, and Housemill's and Kakashu's stunned stares, Sherry cupped the moonlight bell in both hands and softly chanted, "Draw the moon's breath, remold its form." Natural energy surged from her palms. The flower in her hands gradually turned translucent, and across its stems and petals, something like fundamental life code runes became visible. Oh, is that trait modification? Housemill bounced 3 feet in the air again. Trait modification. Imagine it like this. In another world, the difference between a human and a dog comes down to DNA sequences, gene counts, and regulatory patterns. If someone could rewrite those values in a human to match a dog's, that human would theoretically become a dog. Sure, Housemill could cast polymorph, but that's just an illusion. Turn a pig into a sheep, kill it, and you get pig meat that looks like lamb. What Sherry was doing was rewriting the actual foundational life code. No recorded ability user had ever managed to, say, turn a pig into a dragon. The bigger the species gap, the harder the modification. But this was still one of the rarest abilities in existence. Even I sucked in a breath. My fists clenched unconsciously. Sherry extended her right hand. Green natural energy flowed from her fingertip and gently plucked at one specific section of the flower's life code runes. The moonlight bell shifted. Its color darkened from pale white to deep purple. Its signature 3-petal bud slowly grew a 4th petal, the defining feature of the moon antidote bell. The transformation was complete. Natural energy stopped flowing. Sherry let out a long breath, wiped the delicate sweat from her forehead, and looked up at me with a beaming smile. Young master, Sherry did. MMPH. I grabbed her face with both hands and planted one right on her lips. Sherry, you're amazing, young master. When I pulled back, her eyes were misty and unfocused. But she was easily embarrassed, so feeling Kakashu's weird stare and Housemill's excited gaze, her face went red again and she shuffled to my side with an adorable little pout. A maid belongs at her master's side. First time standing there. She was a little nervous, but kept hyping herself up internally. And compared to before, she clearly had more confidence now, half from my encouragement, half from finally feeling like she could actually be useful to me. As for the ancient species stuff, the trait cultivation ability, none of that matters. Being next to young master is enough? That's what she was thinking. I could practically see the sweetness radiating off her. I did notice her transformation hadn't revealed the Blood Moon Great Red Wolf bloodline, but I wasn't worried. With Sherry, I had nothing but patience and affection. With the moon antidote bell in hand, I gave Sherry's little rabbit tail hidden under her skirt a sneaky squeeze, turning her face tomato red, then called in the servants to prepare the antidote. Poison wolf rats are a standard ratman combat unit. Rat-shaped with wolf-like muscles, walking upright, roughly as smart as a 10-year-old human child. Adults grow past 6 feet, special specimens even taller. Claws that can tank regular human weapons, loaded with deadly venom. They love sneaking into human houses through sewers, then crawling out of closets or toilets at night to eat people. Nightmare fuel. But Kakashu had only faced a juvenile one. Underdeveloped body, underdeveloped poison. As the medic wrapped bandages around her torso and a priest cast light heal, the black veins on her cool beauty face faded and color returned to her lips. Better? I was sitting by the window, enjoying Sherry's shoulder massage, legs crossed in proper aristocratic fashion, sipping ice flower wine. Kakashu flexed her arm, walked over, and dropped to one knee. Thank you. Master. She'd clearly never called anyone master before. No flattery, no sweet talking, none of the usual slave groveling. Just an awkward little smile squeezed onto that stoic face. I took a sip and smiled back. From my previous life's intel, Kakashu genuinely never had a master. She came from Towson's Lab 3, but she was too tall and too bad at serving from childhood, so no noble picked her. Normally, Unchosen combat type demi-humans get sent to the military or sold off for research funding. But when she was 10, a group of independent beast-eared women raided the lab and took her with them. That group was eventually wiped out by humans, and Kakashu lived as a drifter until slavers caught her. Doran had zero interest in beast-eared women. He just threw her into the arena to make money. In my previous life, I'd heard she nearly died this time too, but got rescued by allies in the middle of the night. Does that mean the Black Goat Circle already exists? She doesn't seem the type though. I swirled my bottle, thinking it over, then decided not to overthink it. If the organization didn't exist yet, fine, less complications. If it did exist, even better. I was desperately short on talent right now. Meanwhile, Kakashu was sneaking glances at me from the side, hands awkwardly not knowing where to go. She noticed I didn't look down on demi-humans at all, and I wasn't the violent or pervy type of noble she'd encountered before. Those big, clueless eyes filled with surprise. And underneath, a tiny spark of curiosity. This person, that might actually be a good one. She nodded to herself unconsciously. But then her brow scrunched up as she remembered something troublesome. Dodoro slipped me a note during the day. She's not planning a nighttime raid. Is she? While she was still worrying about that, 3 deep bell tolls rang out from the clock tower at the Fountain Plaza, echoing across every corner of the capital. Time to depart. Young master, here is the ferry the family prepared for you. Housemill handed me a fist-sized transparent crystal bottle. Inside, a small white elemental orb was fluttering around. Fairies are tricky. Once they take root somewhere, they're nearly impossible to move. Even a high-rank fairy planted in a low-grade environment will lose its power level fast. The most the family could do was pick one with good potential. This elemental density. Great-grandfather went all out. I nodded approvingly. This fairy was high-grade potential, top tier of the top tier. Housemill rubbed his hands together. The great master arranged it long ago. Now, about the guard detail, the agricultural serfs, and initial resources, I cut him off with a wave. Send everything to Whitestone City in the Frostsnow County. I'll pick it up there. Frostsnow County was the westernmost county in the north. Whitestone City sat at the foot of the Silver Mountains. Pass through it, enter the mountain forests, and you'd reach Winterhold Valley. I didn't want to attract attention by marching through the territory with a whole army in tow. Rendezvous at Whitestone City was cleaner. As for safety concerns, if someone actually had the ability and the nerve to attack me in the north, a few dozen guards wouldn't make a difference anyway. Preparations were just about wrapped up. The bells rang again, grand and resonant. I drained the last of my wine, stood up, and stretched. Sherry dutifully appeared in front of me to straighten my collar. I pinched her chin with a smile. We're heading out. Scared, her cheeks went pink as she shook her head. As long as I'm with young master, anywhere is fine. Huh? Housemill, saddle up my horse. Time to move. Yes, young master. Carriage wheels crunching through early spring snow. Days of travel finally coming to an end. I pushed the curtain aside and let the cold but slightly warm breeze hit my face. Felt good after being cooped up for so long. There it was, the Silver Mountains. Not actually made of silver, obviously. They're just so ridiculously tall that everything from the middle up is buried in white snow, making the whole range look like it was built from silver. Hence the name. And at the foot of those mountains, nestled between rivers, sat a small white city. Whitestone City. Farmland everywhere outside the walls. Water wheels turning lazily. The gate was busy with cloaked adventurers coming and going. Young master, are we staying in Whitestone City tonight? Inside the carriage, Sherry was massaging my thigh with one hand while flipping through a copy of The Great Encyclopedia of Territory Management with the other. Multitasking queen. Winterhold Valley was deep in the dense forest behind this city. Used to be a frontline outpost from the human-ogre wars. But after relations cooled down over the past few centuries and the Silver Road trade route opened up, the valley got abandoned. Too remote, too impractical for big caravans. Now it was just untouched wilderness. I shook my head. No need. The serfs and guard detail the family sent arrived days ago. No fatigue issues. I pinched her cheek. By the way, you're handling the logistics handoff. 200 serfs, livestock, farming tools. Don't mess anything up. Hey, young master. Can Sherry really do this? There it was. The puppy eyes face. But funny thing, after these past few days together, there was zero fear left in her. This was pure weaponized cuteness. She was pouting at me. You little minx. I grabbed her head and kissed her hard, one hand getting a generous handful of peach. Very thin fabric on that skirt. Her face went full sunset. We were being all lovey-dovey when the front curtain lifted. Young master, we've reached the gate. Kakashu poked her head in to report and immediately caught us mid-act. She tilted her head. Bare ears twitched. The scene was pretty incriminating. Sherry was practically in my lap, skirt bunched up in ways that left very little to the imagination. Sherry buried her burning face in my neck so fast, she almost gave herself whiplash. Do you have to be this easily embarrassed? Come on, help me fix my clothes. I need to look presentable. I gave her rear a pat. She climbed off with a crimson face and dutifully straightened my collar. All right, Kakashu, you're in charge of the guard detail from here on. Any problems? She shook her head. No problems, young master. The Kaggard Slave Merchant Association taught me small unit tactical command. She might be missing an eye and running on about 3 brain cells, but she was combat bred. The slave merchants had pumped her full of military knowledge to raise her sale price. They'd also kept her a virgin for the same reason. Business is business. Meeting adjourned. The carriage stopped. I flipped my collar, stepped out with Sherry, and there was Whitestone City's gate. Walls about 20 feet high, made entirely of white rectangular stone blocks. Heavy dark oak doors. 2 banners flying overhead. The white mane white gold lion head, and the Facelin white-green stag. Below the banners, gate soldiers knelt in 2 rows, with city officials bowing between them. At the front, a woman in a red dress stepped forward, pressed her right hand to her left chest, and bowed. Esteemed young Master Ron, Aurora Facelin, City Lord of Whitestone City, has been awaiting your arrival, and I'll give her credit. This Aurora was a stunner. Red dress, curvy figure, proud red hair, making her pale skin look even more luminous. The way her hair tips rested on her, Northern Hemisphere, drew every eye in the vicinity. The kneeling soldiers were all sneaking peeks at her from behind. I stepped down from the carriage with Sherry's help and grinned. So you're the current head of House Facelin? Even prettier than the rumors. Every official in earshot buried their heads even lower. Aurora's eyebrow twitched with barely concealed irritation. Sure, she was beautiful. The bards called her the flower of Frost County, the most beautiful widow in the western north. But openly complimenting a widow's looks at an official welcome ceremony? Extremely rude. This young master really is exactly like the rumors. Spoiled and lecherous, her opinion of me nosedived. Perfect. What she didn't notice was that while my mouth was running on autopilot, my eyes were systematically scanning every single official present. The flirting was camouflage. I was hunting rabbits while pretending to pick grass. I didn't think the family trader was specifically targeting me. My 17 years of being a genuine useless idiot weren't an act. And my best guess was that the mole hadn't even climbed to a high position yet. But better safe than sorry. Everyone here is looking at me with normal, this guy's a pervert eyes. My theory checks out. I ran my thumb across the pommel of my sword, relaxed, and followed Aurora into the city. During the Blood Night in my previous life, almost every direct family member died fighting. The survivors either fell in later battles or fought the rat men to mutual destruction. That meant the traitor was definitely not a family member. Had to be a butler or official, someone adjacent. Which meant the situation was ultimately controllable. I wasn't some unloved family reject from a storybook. I was the sole heir of one of the 3 great white main branches. If I pointed a finger, nobody could escape. It's probably one of those 3 or 4 suspects. But the Ratman's all-out attack showed their commitment. Even if I root out this mole now, they'll just plant another one. And I'd be exposed. No point startling the snake by beating the grass. But confirming this means I can develop in peace. I had my answer. And it wasn't just from this quick scan. Before leaving the capital, I'd sent House Mills secretly back to White Lion City to monitor mail traffic and track those suspects. His intel from the past few days, combined with what I'd just observed, gave me confidence in my assessment. Knowing I could focus on development put me in a much better mood. Funny side effect, though, between my rude first impression and being visibly distracted by my own thoughts, Aurora's face was getting darker by the minute. But she was just a border town city lord. To the outside world, she was the untouchable flower of Frost County, the most beautiful widow in the West. To me, she had to smile through the discomfort no matter what. Young Master Ron, The farming tools and livestock for your assignment are all prepared. You may send someone to verify." She stopped in front of a merchant guild in the North District, forcing a smile. "Good work. Sherry, go check everything." I sent Sherry to handle logistics and pick up a couple of decent-looking maids along the way. Then called Kakashu to take command of the serfs and guard detail waiting at the camp outside the city. Confirmed no mole watching me. Time to move fast. Aurora seemed slightly surprised by my efficiency, but before she could think too much about it, I turned to her. "Besides the tools and livestock, from today until autumn harvest, I'll be sending someone at the start of every month to purchase grain. I trust House Fasselin won't forget. Of course, young Master Ron. You can count on us." She nodded, and I caught something shift in her eyes. She snuck a glance at my profile. "He thinks about grain supply? Then what was that nonsense at the gate?" Fair reaction. Meat can be hunted in the mountains, but grain needs growing time. Most nobles have never experienced food shortage in their lives. Some actually think bread grows in kitchens. First-time lords almost always forget about grain. Someone like me thinking that far ahead was apparently unusual. Since she was already reassessing me, I decided to throw her a bone. "Before I came here, I heard the goblin tribes in the Silver Mountains have been getting restless lately. You aware of that?" "Goblins?" Her pretty phoenix eyes went wide. "Our forest outposts haven't reported anything." "Where did you hear this?" "Where I heard it isn't your concern. Just send scouts to check Nottingham Forest thoroughly. And don't tell anyone I told you. I don't want people bothering me while I'm farming." "Yes. Understood. Thank you, young Master Ron." She was shaking. She knew exactly what I was implying. And was the intel reliable? A border town lord questioning the Whitemane family's intelligence network? What kind of stupid question would that be? Just moments ago she'd been annoyed at me, but now she was bowing at a perfect 90 degrees, and then immediately summoning servants to issue orders. A sharp little doe with useful antlers. I smiled watching her work. And I wasn't lying. In my previous life, Whitestone City did get hit by a goblin raid around this time. I knew about it because years later, investigating the Rat-Minogar connection, I'd stumbled across a case file. Normally goblins don't dare attack cities. They're weak individually, and they can't breed like rat men. They usually end up as ogre slaves, greenskin food, or tutorial monsters for newbie adventurers. Forest ambushes are their whole playbook. But two mid-sized goblin tribes converging in Nottingham Forest? That meant something was pushing them south. Specifically, the Stiven Ratmen and the Silver Mountain Ogres were making moves on the other side, squeezing goblin territory until they had nowhere left to go but toward human settlements. Not enough food? Start raiding human towns. In my previous life, the case file said Whitestone City's walls were breached. City Lord Aurora Fasselin was captured by goblins. A woman. Captured by goblins. Use your imagination. I'm no saint. My hands have enough blood on them to fill half a kingdom. But this pretty widow had been helpful to me, and I didn't mind repaying that with a small kindness. Aurora went off to deal with the goblin situation. Soon after, Kakashu came riding back with 2 female knights. "Young master, head count complete. 20-person guard detail and 200 serfs all accounted for." She dismounted and jogged over. And look, she really was enormous. Nearly 6'6", and when she came running toward me at speed, even I felt a bit of pressure. Interesting fact about her, though. She's a combat-type Glammel bear. Glammel bears are magical beasts from the Western Territories. They can use basic gravity magic, and they love licking flower nectar. Glammel literally means gravity and sweet fragrance. Because of this, even though Kakashu was a towering greatsword fighter, when she ran and worked up a sweat, she gave off this faint, sweet perfume. I instinctively sniffed the air and handed her my water flask. "Slow down. No rush. Thanks, young master." Zero embarrassment. Zero Sherry-style blushing. She just grabbed the flask and started chugging. The 2 female knights who'd followed her were stunned speechless. When my eyes turned to them, they immediately dropped to one knee. Moonguard Knight Squires, Rayshaw and Reyna, greet young Master Ron. Knight Squires? And twins. I smiled and told them to rise. The Moonguard was a special household unit. Members were either war orphans raised from childhood or posthumous daughters of fallen veterans from the Lion family's legions. Every one of them was trained from birth as personal female bodyguards for male Whitemane heirs. These twins specifically, handpicked by my late mother. Outstanding talent, absolute loyalty. I chatted with them for a bit, asked how grandfather, my uncles, my older sister, brother, and little brother were doing back in White Lion City. Shortly after, Sherry emerged from the Merchant Guild confirming everything checked out. I mounted up. Aurora rushed over. "Young Master Ron, won't you stay for the banquet? We've prepared, no need. We'll have plenty of chances to work together." I pulled Sherry up onto the horse, gave a casual wave of my riding crop as farewell, and headed toward the north gate with Kakashu and the twins. Behind me, up on the city wall, Aurora stood clutching a freshly delivered hawk-carried letter. Phoenix, eyes wide with shock. Nottingham Forest, confirmed large goblin gathering. Estimated scale, 2 mid-sized tribes. Her hands were trembling. 2 mid-sized tribes weren't enough to threaten Whitestone City directly, but goblins are fiercely territorial creatures that fight each other constantly. 2 tribes gathering in one forest meant something had forced them together. She took a deep breath to calm the terror creeping up her spine. Then she started giving orders. Bounty postings through the Adventurers Guild, 50 silver per goblin kill, 2 gold per hobgoblin, scaling rewards for higher ranks. City defense mobilization starting today. All civilians banned from leaving after dark. Farmers outside the walls to sleep inside the city from tonight. Clear the West District for housing. Only after the servant disappeared around the corner did she bite her lip, grab her skirts, and rush up to the top of the wall. Midday sun blazing overhead. She looked out and saw me riding at the head of my column. The whole procession already moving into the forest toward Winterhold Valley. Watching me sway lazily on horseback, then remembering how annoyed she'd been at the gate just hours ago. This beautiful widow's fingers tightened on that letter. A complicated, grateful smile crossed her face. "Young Master Ron, how am I ever going to repay this debt? 4 days of mountain trails from Whitestone City. Over 200 people stumbling through forests. Not exactly a luxury cruise. But the serfs were hand-picked by the family. Every one of them loyal, built like a truck, the kind of guys who could grab a pitchfork and moonlight as militia. And the 20 trainee night escorts were solid too. Dawn of day 4, we finally crested the last ridge. And there it was. Winterhold Valley. A gorgeous basin with a shimmering blue lake, dense forests, mountains on all sides. The whole column started gasping. "Whoa, it's so beautiful. Like a paradise." Sherry pulled off her hood, eyes sparkling like a kid at a candy store. I reined in my horse and took it all in with a grin. For mountains surrounding a basin. Only 2 narrow canyon paths in or out. One east toward Whitestone City, one west toward the Western Territories. Textbook defensible position. On the southern edge, a massive waterfall exploded from an underground river in the sheer cliff face. The Halofto River from the Western Territories rose high garden. It crashed down and formed. A beautiful river the locals used to call the Danuna, flowing south to north through most of the valley, feeding meadows and forests and wildlife before pooling into a shimmering lake in the mid-north section. God-Eye Lake. Named because the first settlers who looked down from the mountains claimed they saw a giant vertical pupil deep beneath the water's surface. That legend attracted high-rank adventurers, imperial authorities, even mysterious organizations from other races. Hundreds of years of searching. Nothing found. The legend faded into myth. But the God-Eye Lake legend is real. Beneath that lake sat the 9-level ancient Dragon Grand Cemetery. Of course, if centuries of expert exploration turned up nothing, that just proved how deeply hidden it was. I took a deep breath, crushed the excitement down, and led the column forward. The valley really was abandoned. Once we entered the basin, the trails were half swallowed by vines and undergrowth. Luckily, Aurora had included 2 massive pack beasts in the convoy, creatures bigger than elephants, armored in vine plate to prevent cuts. They plowed through everything ahead of us like living bulldozers. Morning turned to midday. I slapped yet another mosquito off my neck and finally heard running water ahead. We broke through the treeline into an open riverside meadow. Wild buffalo grazing, antelope drinking, leopards and brown bears at the shallows lapping water. They saw us and bolted, hooves thundering. Finally, I breathed in that clean grass and earth smell. Everyone, 10-minute rest. Long live the young master. Is this really going to be our home? It's so beautiful. The serfs collapsed onto the grass, pulling out dark rye bread and chomping away with huge grins. These weren't ordinary serfs. Besides being physically stronger, they were descendants of serfs who'd served well in the north. The Whitemane family believes in strength and honor. We don't completely seal off upward mobility for commoners. Serfs who survive a battle or who work diligently their whole lives in farming, mining, or logging earn their children a chance at citizenship. I'd already promised them, succeed in developing Winterhold Valley, and they'd become its first citizens. Generational roots. A real home. With that dream right in front of them? Of course they were excited. Their energy was infectious. I let myself smile, then took a few swigs of water and pulled out the map. Called over Kakashu and the Twin Knights. Reisha, you and your sister take 15 escort knights and the serfs. Set up camp on the left bank of the Danuna River by noon. Fence the perimeter first against beasts and hostiles, then start building shelters. My lord's quarters, just put it under that big moon apricot tree for now. I circled a large area on the map covering the left bank to the forest edge, then pointed at the enormous tree in the distance. The left bank was the deposit side, flattest terrain, richest soil, perfect starter village location. Yes, sir. Mission will be completed. The twins saluted in unison and went to distribute tasks. This was the advantage of a great family's resources. Even the guards who weren't top-tier fighters had received systematic management training at White Lion City. Within minutes, the break was over. Knights and serfs unloaded axes, hoes, and saws from the pack beasts. Logging, tilling, measuring foundations. Purposeful noise filled the primeval basin for the first time in ages. I watched it all from my seat on a big wooden crate, feeling something I couldn't quite name. Then I turned to Sherry. Go plant the flags by the river. Huh? Me, young master. She was bent over organizing clothes in the crate and looked up surprised. I patted her hip. Save the pouting for bedtime. We're busy. Go. Okay. She grabbed the white gold lion banner and the ice blue sword and shield flag, then ran across the meadow, made skirts sweeping through the grass, scattering grasshoppers and tiny frogs. Young master, is this spot okay? Perfect. She planted them under the moon apricot tree. 2 banners snapping in the wind, rabbit-eared made beaming beneath them. Beautiful scene. I gave her a thumbs up, and the instant those flags went deep into the ground, the throne codex materialized on my left hand, pages turning on their own. Achievement unlocked. I have a territory. Reward, 100 free citizen experience points territory, Winterhold Valley. Scale, unformed. Potential, common 3-star to legendary 9-star. Traits, surrounded by mountains, abundant water and vegetation, unnoticed land, land of great secrets. The life profession panel showed my current 227 citizens broken into lumberjacks, farmers, and carpenters, each with experience bars and star ratings. Notes explained that higher-level workers produced more efficiently and could create better quality outputs. I scanned it quickly, then focused on the 3D map. Winterhold Valley from above, with 4 little portrait icons. Me at the top, then lumberjacks near the forest, carpenters in the village zone, and farmers in the fields. As the workers labored in real life, tiny green numbers like 0.1 and 0.2 floated up beside their icons. The Throne Codex let me see the quality of every profession group and distribute achievement experience points to boost them. I tapped the plus sign next to the lumberjack icon. 100. No dramatic golden light from the sky. The lumberjacks kept working, but their steps got noticeably lighter, and the experience gains ticked up from 0.1/0.2 to 0.2/0.3. The points didn't directly level them up, more like a mental enlightenment buff that accelerated growth. At this rate, we'll have enough lumber for fences and a basic camp by tonight. But this management panel is way too complicated. Life professions were critical for territory development, but the subcategories were endless. 3 professions now was manageable, but a full-size city could have hundreds, with achievements popping up constantly. I'm a combat-type lord. Point me at an enemy army and tell me to charge? Love it. Make me file daily productivity reports? I'd rather fight the ratmen again. But, not really a problem. Sherry came running back, lifting her skirt to move faster. Young master, was the flag placement bad? She'd seen me frowning and immediately panicked. Still so sensitive. Relax. I told you, stop walking on eggshells around me. I pulled her into my arms and, let's say, conducted a thorough quality inspection. By the time the little frogs by the river were jumping into the water out of second-hand embarrassment, and Sherry's ear tips were glowing red, I finally said, "You're handling territory management from now on. Weekly reports to me. Sherry can't. Too much responsibility." Panic mode activated, hands waving. But when she saw how serious and confident my eyes were, she slowly calmed down, clenched her little fists. "Sherry will not let young master down, huh? Confident Sherry is way more attractive. Young master, all right. Go get Kakashu. We have other things to handle." She bounced off happily. I watched her go, then checked the throne codex again. A new cute rabbit ear icon had appeared next to my lord portrait on the map. Sherry's profile. Administrator. Sherry Frostsong. Her life professions read like a resume. 2-star butler, 9-star maid, 7-star cook, 7-star seamstress, 6-star milkmaid. She'd been reading management books every spare moment during our journey, and in just half a month, she'd reached 2-star butler, more than enough to manage a level 0 territory. Better yet, under my authorization, her management decisions could directly channel the free experience points from my achievements. If tomorrow she decided lumber was sufficient and shifted focus to construction, the experience would automatically flow into the carpenter pool, and every change she made would still show up in the codex. Full visibility, full control, kind of like AFK experience farming. I blinked. But that thought didn't linger long. Sherry could handle the day-to-day. What I needed to focus on was... I turned to the next page. Destiny Guidance. I've discovered the earth-shattering secret beneath this basin, but don't yet know how to excavate it. However, I know that in the previous era, the ancient dragon race commanded 9 great servant species. Following the trail of these 9 servant species may lead me to the first step in unlocking this mystery. 9 servant species, my brow furrowed. Right then, Sherry brought Kakashu over. "Young master," Kakasha bowed. "Young master, what's troubling you?" Sherry tilted her head. "Nothing. You two are coming with me for a ride around the area." I grabbed my sword and mounted up. Both of them snapped to attention, fetched horses, and followed. Most creatures need water to survive. I wasn't riding randomly. I followed a tributary of the Danuna westward into the forest near our camp. Close to the logging site, close to backup if anything went wrong. Still early afternoon. Bright sunlight filtered through the canopy, making the forest feel cool and pleasant rather than creepy. Bird calls, insect hums, the occasional startled deer peeking through clearings. Sherry's tension gradually eased. Then, about 20 or 30 minutes in, near a stream, I pulled my horse short and blocked her path. "Don't go further." "Eek. Young master, is there danger ahead?" She practically hunched into a ball. I saw the fear in her eyes and felt a pang, but didn't comfort her. The world ahead was full of war. She needed to learn to face it, and I believed she could. In my previous life, the woman who charged through a sea of ratmen to save me had once been a maid too scared to speak up when bullied. I nodded toward the stream. "Look, EK." By the water lay half a stag carcass, gutted completely, blood turning the stream red. She'd missed the discoloration because the body was downstream. Sherry's whole body shuddered, but she bit her lip hard and didn't scream. "Good girl." I smiled approvingly and nodded to Kakashu. Kakashu dismounted silently, checked the claw marks on a nearby tree, examined the carcass. Came back whispering, "Young master." Hobgoblins. My attention sharpened. Hobgoblins and goblins were both servant races of the greenskin orcs. And according to historical records, greenskin orcs were one of the ancient dragon's 9 servant species in the previous era, enslaved for an entire age. That's why greenskins nowadays constantly yelled, "Greenskins never slaves," at every opportunity. I remembered the Throne Codex's hint about following the servant species trail. I checked the sky. Still bright. Hobgoblins have terrible daytime vision, and they just killed a deer. The air reeks of blood. Perfect time to sneak in and scout. "Sherry, climb a tree and activate nature's sight. Keep watch. If we're not back in 30 minutes, blow your whistle and alert the camp. If anyone spots us, signal immediately." Nature's sight was basic druid stuff. Fairy druids weren't specialists in it. Couldn't turn an entire forest into their eyes like a tree druid could, but Sherry could merge her presence with the natural environment well enough to stay hidden. She tensed up instinctively, but seeing my serious expression, she clenched her fists. "Sherry understands. Sherry will complete the mission." "Good. I trust you." I patted her head, exchanged a look with Kakashu, drew my sword, and crouched low across the stream. The valley had been uninhabited for so long, and previous expeditions had stripped it so thoroughly that even high-rank adventurers didn't bother coming anymore. The local creatures had gotten lazy. We'd barely crossed the stream before spotting a blood trail from something being dragged along a forest path. The blood smell is getting thicker, but not much thicker, mixed with cumin. Kakashu sniffed the air, fuzzy bare ears twitching. Small group of hobgoblins. Currently eating. I nodded silently and followed the trail. Soon we reached a large boulder, and beyond it, wet, loud chewing sounds. I peered through the branches. 3 beefy hobgoblins sat around a campfire, tearing into roasted meat. Deer leg, rabbit, fish, and a skewer of charred goblin. Delightful visuals. Smelled pretty good though, not gonna lie. But I wasn't here for the barbecue. My eyes locked onto the chest behind them. Hobgoblins served the greenskin orcs. Greenskin orcs served the ancient dragons. And ancient dragons had a legendary obsession with collecting treasure and equipment. The dragon race had declined, but their servant species kept the habit of storing loot in treasure chests. They called it war spoils, painted them with clan markings, and color-coded them by value. In their culture, showing off a fancy treasure chest was like a bird building an impressive nest, a flex to attract mates and intimidate rivals. And hilariously, because their ability to grade equipment quality was actually very accurate, humans eventually adopted their color system too. White, green, blue. Right now, in front of me, that big chest with bloody handprints painted on it had several emerald green feathers stuck in the lid. Green tier chest. And that size, probably weapons or equipment inside. My eyes lit up. Hand tightened on the sword hilt. I glanced at Kakashu. Time to move. 1 adult hobgoblin is roughly equal to 2 or 3 regular farmers in a fight. Not exactly a challenge for me. But the key difference between hobgoblins and regular goblins is their racial talent, bloodlust. When it kicks in, they get minor self-healing, heightened battle rage, and massively reduced pain sensitivity. One-hit kills are the way to go. I smeared deer blood on my clothes for scent camouflage and crouched through the bushes, circling behind the hobgoblin on the left, the one gnawing on a goblin thigh like it was a turkey leg. But I didn't strike immediately. Across the clearing, a bush rustled slightly, and a little head with round, fuzzy bear ears peeked out. I gave a tiny nod. The bear ears twitched like an antenna receiving a signal. Next second, Kakashu stood up and just yelled, "HHA, no attack." She literally just popped out of a bush screaming. And look, if you were eating lunch and someone exploded out of the shrubbery next to you hollering like a maniac, you'd flinch too. All 3 hobgoblins jumped. One dropped its deer leg. Comedy gold. But while every single pair of ugly eyeballs was locked onto Kakashu, I was already launching like an arrow. Closed the gap to the nearest hobgoblin, jumped, and drove my sword straight through the back of its neck and out the front. Blood everywhere. My strength was nowhere near my previous life's level, but sword precision? That doesn't atrophy with reincarnation. The thrust went clean through. The hobgoblin didn't even get a scream out before it collapsed. Roar. The other 2 reacted fast, snatching up a warhammer and a battle axe. Rushing me. Focus fire on one, no panic. I stepped on the dead one's back, ripped out my sword, and backflip slashed at number 2. Its hammer smashed into the ground where I'd been standing. Before it could wind up again, I was already in its face with a horizontal slash across both eyes. ROARR. The scream shook birds out of every tree in the area. But here's the frustrating part. My body was so weak that a full-force slash to the face only blinded it and broke its nose instead of splitting its skull in half. Pathetic. Still, for most creatures, losing both eyes would be game over. Hobgoblins. Their vision was garbage to begin with. They navigate primarily by smell, with eyes as backup. Blinded number 2 could still roughly track my position and started swinging that bone hammer like a lunatic. Too bad for it. I knew greenskin fighting patterns like the back of my hand. The instant it charged, I pulled a chunk of deer meat from my sleeve and tossed it to my right. Like a bull seeing a red cape, the hobgoblin's nose twitched and it slammed its hammer down on the empty ground next to the meat. Not good. I could practically hear it thinking in greenskin language. The impact felt wrong, and it knew it had been tricked. But by then I was already at its side, sword angled low, and I hacked into its ankle. Crack. Couldn't cut through the dense bone, but the Achilles tendon snapped clean. The hobgoblin toppled face first like a falling tree. I stomped its back, reversed my grip, and drove the sword straight into its heart from behind. Screaming stopped. 2 hobgoblins down in seconds. Meanwhile, Kakasha blocked the third one's axe with her great sword, caught my fight in her peripheral vision, and I could see the shock in her eyes. During our 2-week journey, she'd watched me train every day, grinding my body, practicing sword forms against trees. But with my current strength, she'd clearly written it off as flashy technique with no substance. Surprise, bear girl. On her end, the third hobgoblin was having a full mental breakdown. Both brothers dead. Just me left. What is this monster? Its strikes weakened with panic. Kakashu caught the opening instantly, twisted her hips to drive her arms, and delivered one massive horizontal greatsword sweep that cut the hobgoblin clean in half. Very graphic. I raised an eyebrow at her. She can bisect a hobgoblin with one swing, and according to her registration records, she only became a warrior class last month. No wonder she eventually gets called the demi-human queen. But why is she listed as only combat type? Curious. But Kakashu was already walking over, catching her breath. She glanced at the 3 dead hobgoblins' lower halves, scanned the surroundings, and said, "Young master, this is just an outpost. We shouldn't linger. Their tribe has at least 30 members minimum. Hobgoblins are pack creatures in a permanent state of hormonal frenzy. A real camp would have captive female goblins or even livestock. This place had nothing. Definitely just a forward position." I nodded. "I know. Go grab what's in the chest." "Yes, sir." She went to crack the loot box. I sat down on the big rock. The fight looked smooth, but this body was still recovering from years of alcohol and debauchery abuse. Half a month of training had only gotten me back to normal human baseline. Long way to go. I chugged some water and summoned the Throne Codex, flipping to the war page. New entries. Hobgoblins slain. 3 experience gained. 84 achievement. First battle bonus reward. Lord. Professional free experience x 50. Unlike the territory page with its overhead map, the war page displayed 6 horizontal character info bars. Top to bottom. Me, Sherry, Kakashu, the Reisha twins, and the 20-person escort squad. Since only 3 of us fought, the twins and escorts were grayed out. Lord, Ron Whitemane race. Pureblood human. Frostwinter sword descendant. Legendary bloodline. Class level. Bronze 1-star breathing technique. None experience. 67 out of 100 Sherry Frostsong race. Human, demi-human, twin ancient species class. Fairy druid / Level. Bronze 1-star experience. 12 out of 100 Kakashu race. Human, demi-human, combat type. Class. Warrior level. Bronze 3-star experience. 74 out of 600. The battle experience didn't dump directly into the experience bar or need manual distribution. Like the life profession system, it gave a temporary growth rate boost. Basically a limited time double XP card. Distribution was based on actual combat contribution, not equal splits. The codex in this regard was really just a detailed tracking tool, keeping me fully informed. At this rate, I'll hit bronze 2-star within a week. That's when I can start training a breathing technique. But Kakashi's race? A question mark? She definitely has secrets. I was still pondering when she came back carrying the loot. Young master, 3 items. Also some gold coins and a shredded priest dress. Looks like some unlucky adventurer party ran into these guys before us. Rest in peace, anonymous lady priest. Your sacrifice was noted but ultimately unhelpful. Kakashu laid everything out in front of me. On the far left, a short staff made of twisted wood, deep brown, about arm length. Little willow branch cord knots dangling from the tip, a faint wood element magic crystal embedded in the grip. Entry-level green tier staff? Perfect for Sherry. Fairy druids need staves, so that worked out beautifully. I turned to the other 2 items, a double-bladed great axe in the middle, and a hooded red cloak on the right. Now here's the thing. When I looked at the axe, I caught Kakashu in my peripheral vision doing the most adorable thing. Hands clasped behind her back, toe grinding circles in the dirt, making that face of someone who desperately wants something but is too shy to ask. Keep in mind, this is a nearly 6'6" warrior woman with a scar across one eye who just bisected a hobgoblin. and she was fidgeting like a kid staring at candy through a shop window. The contrast was criminal. I kept a straight face and rubbed my chin like I was thinking about taking the axe for myself. Her expression crumbled into this sad, disappointed, rejected puppy look. I couldn't hold it anymore and laughed. All right, the axe is yours. Take it, really? Thank you, young master. She snatched it up and hugged it to her chest, rubbing her cheek against the blade like it was a stuffed animal. Her purple-gray, I was practically shooting little sparkle flowers. You like big things? Enthusiastic nodding. Yes. The bigger, the more Kakashu likes it. Right. Take good care of it. I shook my head with a grin and picked up the staff and red cloak. The cloak was woven from firewolf fur with concealment magic runes carved into it. Perfect for Sherry. She wasn't going to be a frontline fighter, but we were short-handed, and the fairy druid was a ranged class anyway. No time to linger. We headed back fast. Hobgoblins are aggressive pack creatures, and finding their outpost this close to camp meant an attack was only a matter of time. But when we reached the stream again, my blood ran cold. The smell of blood. Hobgoblin body odor. Strong. Where's Sherry? I scanned everywhere. Nothing. My heart shot into my throat. Then the bushes rustled. Both of us tensed, hands on weapons, and out crawled Sherry, twigs and leaves stuck all over her head. Young Master. She couldn't hold it together anymore and threw herself into my arms, sobbing. There were hobgoblins. And wolves. I was worried they'd find you. So I led them away, and I almost got eaten. She was shaking with genuine terror, hiccuping through her tears. But what she didn't notice was that Kakashu and I were both staring at her face. Because it was covered in blood, especially around her mouth, smeared red, like she'd been tearing something apart with her teeth. Her hands were drenched too. From fingertips to elbows, the kind of blood pattern you get from plunging your hands into something. Kakashu's throat bobbed. She wanted to say something, but I shot her a look and she stayed quiet. What had actually happened 10 minutes ago? Sherry had been crouching in the tree, merging with the forest through nature's sight, chewing her nails down to stumps with anxiety. She'd never been separated from me since I brought her out of that lab as a child. Even when the old me was out partying all night, she always knew I'd come back. But this time I'd gone to fight. Young Master won't be in danger. He won't be. Her nerves were so frayed the veins near her temples were twitching visibly. Then her ears caught something. 3 hobgoblins walking down the forest path toward her position, freshly killed goblin carcasses slung over their shoulders, blood reeking. And in her panic, her overstressed mind played a trick. She looked at that mutilated goblin corpse and saw my face. Something snapped. Young Master is in danger. Sherry will not let them pass. That was her last coherent thought. Her soft blue eyes contracted violently. The gentle round pupils shattered and reformed into narrow, savage vertical slits. Crimson energy erupted outward like blood mist. Her white rabbit ears twisted and reshaped, growing tall, rigid, covered in blazing red fur. Wolf ears. Her curvy soft figure tightened and hardened. Waist, shoulders, arms. All sharp angles and explosive power now. Fingers lengthened into something between claws and blades. The meek, sweet rabbit-eared maid vanished. In her place stood a lethal, regal battle wolf made radiating primal savagery. Young Master. Probably won't like Sherry looking like this, she murmured it quietly. Then a wild, almost unhinged grin spread across her face. That's fine though. As long as I kill everyone here, nobody can tell him. Her crimson vertical pupils locked onto the 3 hobgoblins below. 3 bugs dare come near my young master. Back in the present, Sherry was crying in my arms. I didn't know exactly what happened, but I could see the 3 hobgoblin corpses in the bushes, absolutely mangled, and notably no wolf anywhere in sight. Interesting math. She said there were hobgoblins and wolves, but there were only shredded hobgoblins and 0 wolves. Does the twin species bloodline amplify personality splitting? That explained why her transformation hadn't shown the Blood Moon Great Red Wolf traits earlier. The wolf blood was there. It was just locked behind a different trigger, an emotional one. But looking at how scared she was right now, I wasn't about to open that conversation. I trusted Sherry 100%. I draped the red cloak over her shoulders and pinched her cheek. It's okay. It's all over. Let's go home. Home. That word hit her like a warm blanket. Feeling my residual body heat in the cloak, her panic dissolved almost instantly. She wiped her tears and realized how much of a mess she'd been. I'm sorry, young master. Sherry was. I said relax. I cut off the apology, lifted her onto the horse, and climbed up behind her. She was still a bit shaky, so I gave her a firm, reassuring squeeze with my thighs. Young master, pink cheeks. But then she noticed the blood on my left hand, the split skin on my thumb web, and turned to see my reassuring smile. The lingering wildness in her eyes faded completely. She leaned back into my chest, fingers playing with the sleeve of her new red cloak, and went perfectly peaceful. 3 people, 2 horses, 1 riderless. By the time we reached camp, the sun was setting. The riverside meadow that had been pure wilderness this morning was now dotted with tents and campfires. Smoke curling up, insects chirping, birds calling, all bathed in warm orange light. The fence perimeter was already taking shape too. Raisha really is a top graduate from White Lion Academy. Smart girl. The twins hadn't tried to build one massive fence for the whole settlement. That would take forever. Instead, they'd constructed a smaller but much sturdier enclosure right under the big moon apricot tree. Not enough room for everyone to live and work inside, but for sleeping? 200 people could squeeze in like a giant communal bed. Daytime activities, cooking, laundry, toilet, happened outside. My lord's cabin, naturally, was a separate structure with its own little riverside garden. The layout was concentric circles, my cabin at the safest center, guard quarters flanking both sides, serfs surrounding everything in a ring around the moon apricot tree. Future development would expand outward from there. Houses, farmland, proper walls. I rode back to my cabin, serfs bowing along the way. Loved the atmosphere. But wood cabins are fine, but a wood fence is not a long-term solution. I dismounted, handed the reins to Sherry, and walked over to test the fence with my hand. Years of looting had cleared out the valley's high-tier creatures, but weak goblin and hobgoblin clans, plus all sorts of magical beasts, were still everywhere. Wood fencing was not going to let me sleep soundly. Stone walls required massive labor, though. Then again, since when was labor a problem in a forest full of hobgoblins? Hobgoblins. Goblins. And their greenskin orc overlords who famously lived by the motto, greenskins never slaves. Unless room and board is included. As long as my fists were big enough, every last hobgoblin and goblin in this forest would be lining up to haul stone for me. Time to train harder. Once I hit bronze 2-star, I can start a breathing technique, and my combat power will skyrocket from there. 5 days later. Morning sun. Work bell ringing by the Danana River. People yawning their way out of the big gate with axes and hoes on their shoulders. And I had to admit, when humans have motivation, they move fast. The carrot dangling in front of these guys was citizenship. And boy were they chasing it. 5 days of voluntary overtime, and the moon apricot tree was now surrounded by a 5-meter-tall wooden palisade. Not enough to stop a serious magical beast or an awakened orc warrior, but solid enough protection for now. All 200 serfs were male, by the way. That's standard for frontier pioneering. You start with maximum labor and combat power, then bring in women and children once the territory has basic safety and output. As for elderly parents, that depends on how generous the Lord is. 197, 198, 199. Young master, the serfs are assembled in the square. I was cranking out push-ups next to the garden by the moon apricot tree. Sweat dripping off my chin, muscles that were actually starting to exist glistening in the morning light. Sherry came out the back door carrying a wooden basin. 200. Everyone's here. I sat down on the stone bench, swept my wet hair back, and chugged water. Sherry started hanging laundry by the flower bed, but her eyes kept drifting toward my body when she thought I wasn't looking. Here's the thing. We've been getting plenty physical this past month. Hands everywhere, constant flirting. But I've been pushing myself to reach bronze 2-star as fast as possible, which meant I needed my body in peak condition. So for nearly a full month, I'd been abstaining. Funny part, with all the high-intensity training keeping me distracted, I was managing fine. Sherry? A woman in her early 30s with a healthy appetite? Not fine. I'd caught evidence of late-night laundry sessions that had nothing to do with regular clothes. I caught her staring and rolled my eyes with a grin. You little minx. What are you thinking about all day? I'm asking you about work. EP. There. They're all assembled, busted. Her ears went crimson. But after a month of living together, Her shyness was more reflex than real resistance. She turned her back to me to hang laundry, but conveniently bent forward just enough to make her maid's skirt do extremely distracting things. Very deliberate, very effective. But I stood up. Finish the laundry later. Distribute these scrolls to Raisha and the others. Okay. A tiny pout of disappointment. But when she picked up the sheepskin scrolls from the table, her eyes went huge. White Frost Battle Formation Technique. Young master, you broke through to 2-star. Why else do you think I haven't touched you this whole time? I came up behind her and gave her a thorough congratulatory squeeze. MMN, she arched her neck back against my chest, eyes glazing over. But beneath the satisfaction, what shone brightest was genuine happiness for me. Quick explanation. Humans have 13 classes, each with their own energy system. Mages cultivate mana. Druids channel nature's power. Lords train battle aura through breathing techniques. My bloodline descends from the Frostwinter Sword, humanity's greatest knight of his era. His breathing technique was called Frost Breath Judgment. Legendary tier. Below that main technique, there were derivative battle formation techniques designed for soldiers, like the entry-level White Frost Battle Formation. The formation technique didn't demand high physical stats, but it was exceptionally rare as an entry-level technique that carried a special elemental attribute. The catch? Only people who pledged loyalty to a Frost Breath Judgment user, meaning me, could learn it. But this wasn't some evil one-sided slave binding. Power and responsibility. That's the core principle of the Frostwinter Sword lineage, and exactly why the Frostwinter Sword has been revered for a millennium as one of humanity's 3 greatest knights. Knighthood was never just a class. This was also why, despite my incredible innate talent, the old me never made any progress in cultivation. Someone who doesn't understand power and responsibility can't become the Frostwinter Sword's heir. As for the difference between breathing techniques and formation techniques, Lords train breathing techniques, higher ceiling, individual combat power that surpasses all 13 base classes at peak. Regular soldiers train formation techniques, lower ceiling, mid-tier professional at best individually. But when formation soldiers step onto a battlefield and form up, their battle auras merge, creating power far greater than the sum of its parts. Lords represent humanity's direction. The 13 classes represent humanity's free spirit. Formation armies represent humanity's united will. The 3 pillars of human civilization's combat power. Now go give those scrolls to Raisha. I'm getting changed. Young master always squeezes so hard. Don't like it? I do. I sent her off with one last pat on her thoroughly reddened rear. She pouted cutely and hurried out with the scrolls. Is it just me? Or has her figure been getting even better since her bloodline awakened? I watched her walk away, glanced at my left hand, and grinned. The abstinence phase was officially over. A body that could fight orcs wasn't going to be bothered by a little cardio. But that was for later. I dumped 2 buckets of cold well water over my head, toweled off, threw on a loose noble outfit, and walked through my lord's cabin to the front. Should probably find Sherry an assistant. She's getting stretched thin. After 5 days of construction, the area outside the palisade was starting to look like a tiny settlement. A stone speaking platform served as the town square, next to a rough but spacious mess hall where serfs ate, rested, and socialized. 3 dirt paths, beaten out of meadow grass by foot traffic, extended outward, one to the forest logging site, one to the farmland, one to the river for water. Wooden houses were going up along the paths. Not pretty, but functional. The moment I stepped out, every serf dropped to their knees. The 20 female guards, led by the Raisha twins, took a single knee with fists to chests. My lord. Good day, Lord Ron. Sherry returned to my side and I walked to the speaking platform. Looking down at this growing little community, my mood lifted considerably. Everyone rise. Thank you, my lord. Loud. Enthusiastic. Grateful. And yes, genuinely grateful. Less than a month in, and they could already tell I was different from other lords. I wasn't some bleeding heart saint. My methods were hard when they needed to be. 2 days ago, a serf encountered a hobgoblin scout at the forest edge and abandoned his companion to run. His corpse was still hanging from an oak tree alongside the hobgoblins. But as long as they did their work properly, 3 meals a day, no pointless beatings or humiliation, and I even had the literate guard knights help them write letters home to their families. Today was extra special, militia selection day. Militia members would still do regular logging and farming, but they'd get citizenship faster and learn the battle formation technique. For people who could never become professional class warriors, this was a life-changing opportunity. Did you hear what Miss Rayshaw said? Lord Ron is offering the White Frost formation. No way. That's the technique from the Frostwinter Sword's own 9th Legion. Of course it is. The Lord is the Frostwinter Sword's descendant. 7 gods. Please let me pass. The square erupted in excited chatter. Then Sherry stepped forward with her sheepskin notes, face forcibly stern, and everyone went silent. The selection ceremony will now begin. Everyone form 5 columns as directed. She was using her best serious voice instead of her natural soft and sweet tone. I could see her legs trembling slightly from behind. She's actually holding it together. Growing fast, I sat on my lord's chair and smiled. Putting Sherry in charge served 2 purposes. First, she needed the practice. My personal maid couldn't be shaking like a leaf at every formal event. Second, I deliberately stayed back rather than standing at the front. Distance creates mystique. When punishment is unknowable, authority becomes immeasurable, and the people revere their ruler. Classic governance. And it worked. With Sherry doing the talking and me sitting silently on my throne, the serfs' gazes toward me carried even more awe and reverence. When Sherry finished and stepped back to my side, I stood and walked forward. Everyone close your eyes. Focus your minds. Yes, 200 men shut their eyes, vibrating with anticipation. I raised my right hand and channeled the frost breath battle aura I'd awakened just this morning, but had been intimately familiar with for a lifetime, into my palm. A beautiful ice-forged longsword materialized from my hand. Is that the legendary divine sword, Wrath of Winter? Behind me, Sherry, Kakashu, and the Rayshaw twins were all staring with saucer-wide eyes. Wrath of Winter was the hereditary treasure weapon of the Frostwinter sword lineage. It bonded to the bloodline and could only be summoned by a Frostwinter descendant who successfully cultivated Frostbreath judgment. This sword hadn't appeared in nearly 400 years. The temperature dropped noticeably. White frost wind howled from the blade. The first gust swept across the assembled serfs. Bodies dropped like dominoes. A second gust followed, then a third. When the wind stopped and I dismissed the sword, face slightly pale from the effort, only 50-some men remained standing, frost clinging to their hair and eyebrows, expressions hard and resolute. I looked them over and nodded. These 50 pass. Rayshaw, issue them the formation technique and enroll them in the militia. Double rations starting today, yes. Thank you, Lord Ron. I left with Sherry. The moment I was gone, the square exploded with noise. Those who passed celebrating wildly. Those who didn't either sulking or grinding their teeth and swearing to pass next time. The formation technique didn't test talent. It tested will and determination. For the Frostwinter sword lineage specifically, the will to endure extreme cold without giving up, and the determination to protect the North and give your heart to House Whitemane. Different lord families had different criteria. I'd once encountered a family that delighted in slaughter. Their soldiers passed easier the more cruel they were. Not a one-size-fits-all system. But for most people, the formation technique represented an achievable dream, so the square stayed lively long after the selection ended. What nobody noticed was that at the forest edge, beneath the oak tree with 2 dangling corpses, 3 oily green bald heads were peeking out. Boss, these humans killed our guys. Let me go smash 'em. A massive greenskin orc, easily 6.5 feet, was already gripping his axe and itching for a fight. Bonk. The orc beside him, an elderly warlock type holding a gunno-made telescope, smacked him on the head. What's the rush? We're the Smart Eclipse Moon Clan. Observe first, then act. Timing. Do you understand timing? Yeah. The battle junkie orc scratched his head, eyes spinning. But boss, when I ask the right time, you're hopeless. The warlock orc snatched the telescope and shoved it in front of his face. See that? Half the square just collapsed. These humans obviously caught some kind of plague. Give it a few days, and they'll all be sickly weaklings. Then we eat them easy. No way. The battle junkie's eyes went wide. The warlock threw up his hands and turned to the third orc, a monster standing over 13 feet tall. Number 2's brain is broken. Number 3, give him 2 smacks. Sure thing, boss. The giant picked up the battle junkie like a baby chick and flicked him twice. The battle junkie howled in pain. The warlock nodded with satisfaction, then cast one last vicious glare toward my settlement before turning back into the forest. Tell those useless hobgoblins and the goblins still marching here. 5 days from tonight, we launch the full assault. Winterhold Valley belongs to us, GRENSKINS. Sure thing, boss. Can't wait to eat some tasty two-leggers again. But the little ones taste better, they're tender. Boss, you can't hog them this time. Idiot. I said number 2 goes to deliver the message. You can't even talk straight. How are you going to relay orders? Okay, boss. Shut up. Here's the thing about greenskins. Goblins, hobgoblins, orcs, the whole lot. You cannot negotiate with them. Period. First, they don't farm, don't trade, don't innovate. When they want something, their only instinct is to steal it or kill for it. Second, their worldview has no concept of equality. You either beat them into submission and enslave them, or they beat you and eat you. No middle ground. Their entire existence is either invading or preparing to invade. I knew this extremely well. So from the moment we discovered hobgoblins near camp, I'd been sending scout patrols into the forest daily. Young Master, Raina reports massive concentrations of goblins and hobgoblins in Deer Forest to the west. Over 200 goblins, roughly 60 hobgoblins, all adults. Raisha knelt in my back garden, face dead serious. The sound of sparring behind her went silent. I'd been shirtless going at it with Kakashu when she arrived. I took a water flask from Sherry. Any orcs spotted? Stand up and talk. Thank you, young master. She rose and shook her head. No confirmed orc sightings, but based on Raina's and my assessment, there's likely orc involvement. Deer Forest is small. Even with the deer herds, it can't sustain that many greenskins. And this many gathered together without infighting? Something with authority is holding them in line. Smart. I gave Raisha an appreciative look. This half-elf knight with her pointed ears and elegant bearing was everything my mother had hoped for when she selected her as my personal aide. Balanced abilities across the board and impressively broad knowledge. Greenskins do form groups, but they fight each other constantly. Only a superior species using raw force and dangling rewards can keep them briefly united. My expression tightened. 60 hobgoblins. That's too many for a single orc to wrangle. But it's not enough for a proper orc tribe either, since even a small tribe brings at least 200 hobgoblins to a fight. Some kind of wandering orc gang that drifted into the area. Hobgoblins and goblins didn't worry me much. Servant races, either weak individually or stupid or both. Orcs were the real problem. The Bloodroar Plains Orc War Alliance was a continental superpower on par with the human Seven Kingdoms. Individual orcs had potential matching humans, plus their own war spirit combat system and professional classes. Are they still gathering? According to Raina's report this morning, numbers increase daily. No signs of imminent attack yet. But if there are orcs involved, the build-up could be a feint. Got it. I thought for a moment, then beckoned Raisha close and whispered instructions. Her pale gold elf eyes lit up with surprise. Young master, you're going to? Just go prepare. Yes, she left. Kakashu immediately scooted over, polishing her axe, round bare ears twitching with curiosity. Young master, what were you two whispering about? Kakashu didn't hear. Her purple-gray eye was brimming with innocent curiosity. On a nearly 6'6" woman with deadly curves, this sneaky puppy act was absurdly cute. You wouldn't understand if I told you. You'll see soon enough. I pinched her ear with a smile. Among my current people, Sherry handled domestic affairs as headmaid. The Raisha twins were trained more as administrative aides than pure fighters, better suited for territory management support. Kakashu was honestly the best fit for militia captain, but she'd never had formal command training. She could solo massacre greenskins all day, but leading troops? Total blank slate. For now, I had Sherry juggling territory management while the twins ran the militia. Kakashu would learn. Given her future title of Valkyrie of the West, the talent was clearly there. After chatting with Kakashu and getting suited up in knight's armor with Sherry's help, I headed to the square. Full assembly. Everyone dropped to one knee when I appeared. My lord, voices kept low, Raisha's prior instructions. Good. Looking sharp, I scanned the formation. Front row, 20 female guards in gleaming steel plate, shields and lances. Behind them, 50 militia in leather armor with spears. The White Frost formation technique was easy to pick up. After just a few days, these militia weren't experts yet, but they could use it. The telltale sign? Standing before me. Without even activating their battle aura, I could feel them breathing and heart beating in sync. Not scattered individuals anymore, a unit. Why leather instead of steel for the militia? Not favoritism. Steel armor is heavy, and these guys just started military training. Riding horses in plate and charging with lances? Maybe manageable. But we were probably fighting in a forest, and making rookies wear steel plate in dense woodland was a death sentence, not protection. Behind the militia, the remaining 100-plus serfs. All-male pioneer teams meant everyone could fight. Plus, we had nothing worth protecting in camp anyway. I wasn't even afraid of trading bases with the greenskins. The serfs wore leather too, with spears, but noticeably lower quality than the militia's gear. Weakest unit gets the weakest equipment. Harsh battlefield logic. But also my mercy. I didn't need the serfs charging the front line today. Young master, the scout team has infiltrated the forest edge with fire starters, Raisha reported. I nodded. Good. Distribute battle assignments. Army moves out. Yes. I turned to Sherry, who was trying hard to look brave and failing adorably. Relax. I will come back victorious. Until then, guard the home. Don't let any stinky greenskins sneak in. You know how much I hate their smell. Why yes. Sherry will complete the mission, hand on heart, solemn oath, eyes full of fear, not for herself, but for me. Her gaze shimmered like jelly, tears threatening to spill. But she didn't say anything more, just bit her lip and watched me ride off at the head of the column. Meanwhile, in Deer Forest, inside a massive cave covered in bloody handprints, the warlock orc heard his scouts report and practically glowed with excitement. What? The humans are coming to US? Yes, chieftain. Saw him clear as day, marching along the riverbank. The leader's riding a big black horse. H.A. Excellent. Just as I thought. Young, stupid human lord. Can't sit still. The warlock paced around grinning like a maniac. See, this warlock considered himself a genius. After learning his hobgoblins had been killed near our camp, he'd realized his position might be compromised. But instead of panicking, he'd set a trap. His full force had actually arrived 2 days ago, 90 hobgoblins and 300 goblins packed into this cave system. But he kept it quiet. When he spotted our scouts, he got clever. During the day, he'd sneak already arrived hobgoblins and goblins back to the forest edge. At night, when our scouts came to check, he'd have them walk back and pretending they'd just arrived. All to create the illusion of still gathering forces and bait the young, foolish human lord into attacking prematurely. He'd held back for 2 whole days. For a greenskin, suppressing battle lust for 2 days was like a teenage boy watching adult content for 12 hours straight, and then enduring 2 more days of nothing. Except a million times worse. But it was all worth it. The warlock's eyes spun with schemes. Tell everyone. Full retreat into the deep forest. What? Retreat. Boss, did you hit your head? The human's already taken the bait. Yeah. The boys haven't had 2-legger brains in forever. That slurp sound they make. No. I refused to retreat. The cave erupted into chaos. The warlock's face got darker and darker until he finally screamed, raised his hand, and pointed at the loudest, biggest hobgoblin. Shut up, all of you. Gnaw the melon. Death finger, black-red lightning shot from his fingertip. The targeted hobgoblin went rigid. Gray decay spread from its forehead across its entire body. And then, poof, scattered like ash in hot wind. Dead silence. The stupid hobgoblins and goblins suddenly remembered they were standing in front of a destruction warlock. Every mouth clamped shut. The warlock nodded, satisfied. He always prided himself on being a reasonable intellectual orc, so he explained, I know you pathetic Winterhold Valley dregs want a hot meal. But 2-leggers aren't stupid. If we charge out the moment they march, that tells them we were lying in wait. Then they retreat behind their wooden fence. What if they have ambushes? So my retreat isn't a real retreat. It's bait to lure them deep into the forest. Once those apes are in our woods, they're dinner. And if any of you greedy types want to snack on a few early, nobody will catch you in the trees. The cave went from silent to ecstatic. Long live the warlock. Whatever you say, boss. Hurry, hurry. Let's retreat fast. Tribal leaders scrambled out to pull their forces into the forest. Eager hobgoblins even hoisted the warlock onto a palanquin and ran, chanting victory slogans. Tch, morons. Riding his palanquin made of human skin, deer skin, and bear skin, the warlock looked smug on the outside but contemptuous on the inside, disgusted at serving alongside these low creatures and mocking the gullible young lord. My old chieftain was so afraid of humans. Leaving that coward's tribe was the right call. Today, I, Gul'dan, begin building my eternal empire in Winterhold Valley. His eyes blazed with feverish ambition. Victory was right there. He wanted to throw back his head and cackle. Then his vanguard went berserk. Goblins came stampeding back, arms over their heads. The forest is on fire. Everything's burning. There's a monster. Gabuga just looked at it, and his head fell off. Fire? Monster? Impossible. The warlock shot to his feet. Stop running. It's a trap. His roar shook leaves from trees. But he wasn't a war spirit orc, a chieftain type. Only war spirit orcs had absolute bloodline-level control over servant races. As a professional class orc, he had individual power but not true leadership authority. The fire spread fast. Towering flames appeared in his vision. His beard was curling from the heat. Damn. I've been outplayed. Watching his army disintegrate and flee toward the river, the warlock finally understood. He was the one who got baited. But how? How did that human know I'm not a war spirit? He couldn't figure it out as his 2 orc bodyguards shielded his retreat. If I'd been there, I would have laughed in his face. This amateur thought he was clever? I'd killed more greenskins than he'd ever seen. His own trick, making goblins and hobgoblins walk back and forth to fake a build-up, was exactly what exposed him. A war spirit orc has absolute control over servant races. Their armies move with discipline and unified spirit. His ragtag mob moved like, well, a ragtag mob. Any other lord might have missed the difference. But for someone like me who'd fought greenskins his entire previous life, the gap was as obvious as the moon in a dark sky. And so the trap sprung on him. Greenskins fled toward the river. The moment they jumped in, Sister Knight Reyna and the surf archers emerged on the bank and turned them into pincushions. The survivors who hadn't entered the water turned around and ran along the riverbank, fire roaring behind them. They didn't get far before running smack into 50 militia in a long formation. Just 50 against 150 greenskins. We have the numbers, the greenskins screamed, brandishing bone clubs and charging with their signature war cry. Then the 50 militia stepped forward in perfect unison. White, feathery battle aura erupted from each soldier, individually thin and faint. But the 50 streams merged into one, enveloping the entire formation. Temperature plummeted. The militia were amazed to find the searing forest fire couldn't touch them anymore. And in front of them, dozens of the closest goblins had been flash-frozen into ice sculptures. White Frost Formation in action. Kill. For Whitemane. The North stands eternal. The militia charged in squad formations, cutting into the greenskin line like an ice blade through foam. Every sword swing carried frost damage. Weak against hobgoblins, they could tank a few hits. But goblins? One clash of weapons and their hands froze stiff. Next swing took their heads. 3-pronged massacre. In the forest, Big Sister Raisha and 20 night guards driving greenskins through the flames. In the river, Little Sister Reyna and serfs shooting everything that moved. On the riverbank, militia formation shredding the last pocket. When the warlock orc finally escaped the carnage, carried on his giant bodyguards back to the wet riverside meadow, he turned to look at the inferno consuming the forest and knew. Total defeat. Tch. Damn 2-leggers. Just wait. I, Gul'dan, will have my Revan. An arrow whistled in from the distance and punched through his shoulder before the giant orc even reacted. The warlock shrieked. He followed the arrow's trajectory and looked up. On a small hilltop, a barriered woman with a massive axe on her back stood in the grass. And beside her, a man with gray-gold hair shimmering in the sunlight was already knocking another arrow, gazing down at him with perfectly calm eyes. The warlock's entire body convulsed. That gaze, emotionless, absolute, utterly unbothered, dredged up a terrifying childhood memory. When he was small, his father had taken him to the Bloodroar Plains War Alliance. From a distance, he'd seen the High Warlord called Bone Mad Roar. That same look. The look of someone so far above you that your existence barely registers. A high warlord was just one step below a great chieftain, the absolute peak of greenskin power. "Who are you?" His scream echoed across the meadow. My answer was a frost-enchanted triple-shot arrow. His giant bodyguard caught one. The other two punched into his heart. Ice spread from the wounds instantly, freezing his heart solid. "My name?" I watched him topple off the giant's back from across the meadow. Didn't feel like answering a dead orc's question. Just shouldered my bow and mounted up. Rayshaw reported 3 orcs. "One's unaccounted for. I'll handle it. The big one's yours." "Yes?" "Thank you, young master." Kakasha gripped her axe, staring at the 13-foot-tall giant orc howling in pain on the meadow below. Her cool, clueless face showed zero expression as always, but her eyes burned with battle hunger, and those usually floppy bare ears were standing at full attention. Fire swept across the sky. Up on the moon apricot tree, Sherry in her hooded red cloak was gripping the trunk, watching the distant battlefield with white-knuckle anxiety. The moment she saw greenskins getting slaughtered along the riverbank, her whole body relaxed. Those stinky greenskins are no match for young master. She pumped her little fist and started climbing down to prep the medical support. I'd left about 10 of the skinnier serfs behind as a medic team. I'd calculated this battle wouldn't be that rough. And while Sherry's fairy druid class didn't have the big area healing spells that tree druids got, she could apply rejuvenation buffs to speed up wound recovery. But just as she was about to jump down, her nose twitched. A familiar, disgusting stench on the wind. Greenskin smell. Inside the perimeter. On the other side of things, the north meadow outside the palisade. The grass had grown waist-high after a month of spring growth. And slinking through it was the third orc, Battle Junkie number 3, real name Grey Grunt Pigsty. 2 axes in hand, green skin blending perfectly with the tall grass. Fresh blood around his mouth. He'd already eaten one of the sentry serfs, but his beady eyes were darting around nervously. Damn 2-leggers and their fire trap. Boss and number 2 are definitely dead. His hand went to a cloth pouch on his belt. Felt the heavy grain stalks inside. His scowl twisted into a grin. Grey Grunt Pigsty must survive. Carry on their will. And also their share of the golden wheat. Golden wheat wasn't some legendary high-tier crop, but it was a rare strain from the southern western territories. What made it special? Cold and drought resistance. In most places, that's a nice bonus. In Winterhold Valley, it's everything. Winterhold Valley has 9 months of winter per year. The lush greenery we'd been enjoying would vanish in 2 months. And winter's biggest problem? Food shortage. These 3 orc brothers had stumbled onto the wheat after ambushing a rookie lord's convoy near the western border. That lucky find was exactly why they'd chosen Winterhold Valley, a place to build their own power base. Plans cut short, but Grey Grunt wasn't upset. He was actually excited. He was an orc with wintergrain. Finding female orcs might be tough, but female goblins and hobgoblins? He'd have his pick. Plus, with the boss and number 2 dead, he was the boss now. This human lord is too strong. Grey Grunt can't stay. Must escape and find somewhere remote. Wait, what's the GRKK? Mid-fantasy about building golden wheat fields surrounded by various willing females. A red blur flashed on the hilltop ahead. Before his brain could even process it, everything went black. Permanently. Wolf Mode Sherry pulled her claw-shaped right hand out of the back of his neck, flicked off the blood, and sneered. "A weakling like you dares try to sneak attack young master's home." She was about to go wash her hands in the river when the cloth pouch in the dead orc's grip caught her eye. He was clutching this thing even while dying. Must be something valuable. The thought of presenting a trophy to me made her fierce wolf eyes sparkle. Her gorgeous red wolf tail started wagging under the cloak. She crouched down to check the pouch, and then her ears caught hoofbeats approaching from the east. That scent. Young master, she looked down at her blood-soaked right hand. Face went white. I'm doomed. No time to wash. Full panic mode. She was pulling at her wolf ears in distress when the hoofbeats arrived. Sherry? What are you doing out here? I pushed through the tall grass to find her sitting on the ground looking like she'd been crying, an orc corpse beside her. I sheathed my sword and dismounted. She threw herself at my feet, sobbing. Why, young master, there was a wolf again, a wolf. Again, I glanced at the orc's neck, 5 puncture wounds, clearly from fingers being driven into the flesh. My eyes drifted to her hands. She felt my gaze and flinched, hiding her bloody hands behind her back, head bowed, too scared to look at me. Yeah, I knew. The thing is, I'd known about Sherry's condition even in my previous life. She always believed she was an orphan. The truth? She was the fourth daughter of a poor family who saw her as a burden. Her own parents sold her to Imperial Lab 47. Severe childhood trauma. Inhuman experiments. The lab also made all the children fight to the death on an island, survival rate under 1 in 1,000. All of it created a severe psychological split. Her normal self was genuine, soft, sweet, obedient. But when her emotions spiked hard enough, especially when she felt the need to protect someone, a completely different personality emerged. Yet, even in my previous life, after years of my neglect, after Fisher's abuse, she never once snapped in front of me. Not once. I owed this woman more than I could ever calculate. I'd always known about her issue but never brought it up, hoping time and kindness would gradually help her heal. But now, she was shaking with fear, thinking my silence meant anger or disgust. I pulled her to her feet and into my arms. Relax. No matter what version of Sherry you are, young master will always love you, young master. She went rigid. Then years, decades, of compressed trauma, fear, and loneliness erupted all at once. She grabbed onto me and wailed. I just held her, didn't say anything else. The sunset turned the river orange, and slowly the sobbing faded to quiet hiccups. Better? I tilted her face up to mine. She met my eyes, blushed furiously despite everything, whispered, young master, and buried her face in my chest again. Ostrich mode. Smack went my hand on her rear. Save the cuddling for home. We still have work to do. Ow, that hurt. Young master, she pouted up at me from my chest, hands reaching back to rub where I'd smacked, which put her face right at my waist level. The world went very quiet. She felt it. I felt it. I'd hit bronze 2-star. Recovery period over. No more restrictions. Looking at those pale legs under the red cloak, my breathing got heavier. My hand traced along her waist, sliding under the fabric. She arched her neck, trembling. Hoofbeats. Again. Young master. The battlefield is tallied. Cough, cough. I saw nothing. Please continue. Rayshaw burst through the riverside grass, caught one look at the scene, went beet red, and yanked her horse around. That if you didn't see anything, maybe try not announcing it. I glared at her, half annoyed, half laughing. Pulled Sherry up. Her eyes were so glazed over they were practically dripping. I started to say something to lighten the mood, but one look at this gorgeous woman's dazed, love-struck face, and I just shook my head. Come on. Battlefield first. Ears burning crimson. She nodded sweetly and moved to mount up behind me. Then she remembered something and tugged my sleeve, pointing at the orc's body. Oh, young master, that greenskin was clutching its pouch right until the wolf got it. I crouched down and checked. Golden wheat. My eyebrow went up. Not a rare treasure by my standards, but nobody had expected me to actually become a lord, and golden wheat only grows in the Western Territories. City Lord Aurora had been sourcing some for me, but I currently had 0 in hand. This just saved me at least half a month. Not bad at all. I ruffled Sherry's hair. You did great this time. What reward do you want? Reward? Her gentle eyes went round, hands fluttering with nowhere to land. Normally, she'd never dare ask for anything. But remembering the intimacy from moments ago and my affection, her shyness deepened. But after a moment of hesitation, she gathered her courage. For a reward. Sherry wants a kiss from young master. Is that okay? Oh, EK? If young master thinks that's too much. MMPH. She saw my raised eyebrow and panicked, thinking she'd overstepped. But before she could finish backpedaling, I pulled her in and kissed her deeply. A long while later, I pulled back. How was that? She was still dizzy. Don't like it? Young master doesn't care for dishonest maids. I lifted her onto the horse and gave her thigh a squeeze. She burrowed into my chest, ears blazing. That's not. Sherry. Sherry really loves being kissed by young master. Huh? Rayshaw, lead the way. Time to count our spoils. Yes, young master. Nighttime. What used to be Deer Forest was now a field of charcoal and ash. Over 300 goblins, nearly 100 hobgoblins. After this, nothing's going to threaten this area for a while. Sherry, starting tomorrow, designate this whole zone as farmland. I was sitting at a makeshift stone conference table under the open sky. Sherry, back in her maid uniform, nodded and jotted it down in her little notebook. I turned to the Rayshaw twins. Casualties? Young master, we lost 27 serfs and 8 militia. I've arranged proper burials. Rayshaw paused. Beyond minor injuries, 16 serfs and 6 militia were permanently disabled. A cold night breeze swept across the table. This was an overwhelming victory by any metric. But losses were losses. Around the campfire, the surviving militia and serfs were eating roasted meat in silence, grief written all over their faces. Nearly 2 months of living and working side by side. Then suddenly, people you shared meals with are just gone. Even in the war-torn North, that never gets easy to swallow. I shook my head, then raised a finger. Passed down my orders. Beyond standard death benefits and merit-based rewards for the fallen. Any deceased militia member with a wife and children. If they're willing to come to Winterhold Valley, 3 family members receive citizenship. Any deceased serf with family may nominate 1 person for citizenship. All soldiers disabled in this battle receive 3 months of free rations. Disabled serfs are promoted to citizens. Disabled militia may choose a trade and pay no taxes for 2 years. Dead silence. Every single person stared at me in my lion pelt cloak. Nothing but crackling campfire. Then, long live the Lord. Long live the Frostwinter's sword. Young Master Ron. We will never forget your mercy. The roar shook the night sky. Faces everywhere, shocked, elated, relieved, all breaking into enormous grins. And their reaction made sense. Federal law technically mandated death benefits for fallen soldiers, but law was one thing and reality was another. Most pioneer lords paid nothing. Post-battle honors for families? Care for the disabled? Laughable concepts. The vast majority of crippled soldiers got abandoned to die alone in the wilderness. The way people looked at me shifted right then and there. If they'd followed me before for survival and opportunity, something deeper was forming now. I noticed it. Enjoyed it, even. But we were in the middle of business. Casualties covered. Now, what did we gain? I took a sip of ice flower wine. Rayshaw stepped back, and her sister Raina came forward. Young master, total kills, 220 goblins, 70 hobgoblins. Currently, we're holding 103 goblin prisoners and 23 hobgoblin prisoners in a temporary water dungeon. That many prisoners, my heart jumped. Don't rough them up too badly. Those are free labor. Labor was my single biggest shortage right now. Goblins are only half human height, but their stamina is ridiculous. They can mate dozens of times a day and only need 30 minutes of sleep. The Royal Academy actually did a study. 1 goblin laborer's daily output exceeds a human serf's by about 30%. Just never let them think you're weaker than them. As for hobgoblins, 2-meter-tall muscle machines that also barely sleep. Their intelligence is even lower than goblins, so forget delicate work, but I only needed them hauling stone for my city walls anyway. Of course, greenskins are bloodthirsty backstabbers down to their DNA. I'd never integrate them into my actual city. Work them until the walls are done, then dispose of them. Simple. Plans forming in my head. I lifted my chin. Continue, Raina nodded. Besides prisoners, we recovered 13 necklaces strung with gold and silver coins from the lair. 23 gold, 279 silver. Bunch of broke losers. I made a face, but it wasn't surprising. Greenskins don't use currency. No trade between our species means no reason for them to stockpile money. Beyond currency, we seized over 400 beast hides and 200+ bone spears and hammers. The hides are enough for the entire winter without outside purchase. The bone weapons work as everyday training gear, but the biggest find, Raina's voice shifted. Deep inside a small cave system to the north, we discovered massive quantities of sunward flowers growing along the tunnel walls. Sunward flowers? My eyes went wide. Yes, young master. But sunward flowers normally only grow on sunny hillsides. Why would they be in a cave? Raina was confused. I was ecstatic. Why had I stumbled onto the greenskin conspiracy in the first place? Because I'd been searching for the entrance to the ancient dragon cemetery and accidentally hit their outpost. And now sunward flowers, a surface species, growing deep inside a cave system? That was a massive clue about what lay beneath. But even setting the cemetery aside, sunward flowers were a godsend. The North has 9 months of winter per year. Every few years, there's a long winter, one that lasts years. And whenever winter comes, Elemental creatures called ice ghosts start appearing throughout the forests. Surviving in those conditions isn't easy. One of the North's most essential items is the sunflower, the evolved form of the sunward flower. Plant sunflowers indoors for warmth. Mass plant them along city streets and alleys to push back the cold enough for people to walk outside normally, for wheat fields to keep growing. Plus, sunflowers contain trace amounts of light element energy, the perfect counter to ice ghosts. Problem is, sunflowers mainly grow in the sunny south. They don't naturally occur in the north, and transplants only survive 2 or 3 winters before dying. But sunflowers are just the upgraded version of sunward flowers. I looked at Sherry. She was taking meeting notes, but had already connected the dots, staring back at me with wide, excited eyes. Neither of us said a word. The fewer people who knew about her trait modification ability, the better. I pulled out the map, barely containing my excitement, and studied it carefully. The underground cave was directly north of the moon apricot tree, not far at all. I drew a circle from the cave entrance to the tree. My future castle goes in the center of this area, between the moon apricot tree and the cave. The tree zone becomes my private garden. The cave zone, leave it to me, I'll handle that personally. Castle outer walls, 10 meters high. The entire city expands outward from the castle. Understood, young master. Oh, and send word to City Lord Aurora in Whitestone City. I need 500 more serfs recruited before next month. Also, everyone who earned merit in this battle, serf or militia, has permission to bring their parents, wives, and children here. Yes, I'll arrange it immediately. With the Greenskin tribe wiped out, our camp was officially rooted in Winterhold Valley. Next steps: bring in more people, develop agriculture, build an economy. Plan out military barracks, logging camps, markets, mills, farmland, roads. Eat up this zone's potential, then expand outward. None of it was complicated, but it needed boots on the ground. First though, after a battle like that, everyone needed rest. Next morning, sunlight creeping through the window. What time is it? Sherry? Sherry, where are you? I called out twice for my morning clothes delivery. No response. Weird. Then the smell of meat stew hit my nose. I threw on a robe, shuffled downstairs in slippers, and pushed open the kitchen door. There she was, wearing a breezy summer-made outfit, humming a folk tune, stirring a pot at the stove. Her rabbit ears were perked up for once, genuinely happy. 2 reasons for that, I figured. First, she didn't have to hide her secret from me anymore. She'd been terrified I'd kick her out over the split personality thing, but also consumed with guilt about hiding it. Those 2 feelings had been tearing her apart for weeks. She'd barely been sleeping. But after what I'd said at the river yesterday, that weight was gone. Second reason, we'd actually established a real foothold in Winterhold Valley. She was happy for me, and probably fantasizing about our future together here. Also, yesterday at the river, young master said his body has fully recovered. Her hand trembled slightly on the ladle. A woman in her early 30s who'd been teased and touched for a month straight, with 0 follow-through? Yeah, she was at her limit. I wonder if young master is awake yet. Eep, she was mumbling to herself when I pressed up against her from behind. The ladle almost went flying, but I caught it. What's got you so distracted you didn't even hear me walk in? In nothing, young master. I was just, MMPH. I tilted her chin back and kissed her before she could finish. Early morning. Lots of energy. I pressed forward hard, hands finding her lower back and that adorable little rabbit tail. She melted into it immediately. She really was the most obedient woman alive. When I caught the tail, her whole body shivered in the cutest way. And her figure? Absolutely devastating in that thin summer-made outfit. The full package, pressed against the kitchen counter. Things were escalating fast. But then she shyly put her hand on mine and whispered in my ear, "Why, young master?" My monthly visitor arrived. I didn't want it to. But she looked like she was about to cry from guilt and panic. I met her frantic eyes and laughed. I told you, stop panicking around me. Besides, there are other solutions. Other solutions. One moment of confusion. Then it clicked. Her ears went crimson to the tips. And then, in my line of sight, this gentle beauty turned around, shyly bit down on a hair tie, and lifted both hands to pin up her long hair. Morning kitchen. Big pot of stew bubbling away. Sunlight stretching 2 shadows across the floor. A silhouette pressed into the corner of the counter. rabbit ears swaying in the dawn light. A good while later. Second floor window. Goblins really are born laborers. Working since before dawn and still going strong. Feeling thoroughly refreshed, I leaned against the windowsill eating stew-soaked rice, surveying the bustling scene outside. Before the battle, I'd had to pull people off construction and farming for security patrols. Everything was understaffed. Now, the forest threat was gone, Deer Forest was burned clear for new farmland, and our workforce had more than doubled. Serfs were cheerfully tilling rich soil, building houses under the guards' direction, or herding livestock across the meadow. The greenskins? Very different treatment. Every back-breaking job in camp landed on them. Goblins were miserably logging in the South Forest. Hobgoblins were quarrying stone at the White Rock Hills, then loading it onto donkey carts. Under the militia's cracking whips, they were swinging their tools so hard I'm surprised sparks weren't flying. Behind me, Sherry, who'd needed a bath after certain wardrobe incidents, was organizing clothes on the bed in just a light sleep dress. Young master, these greenskins started at dawn and have been going 7 hours straight without a single complaint. Raina came by this morning and called them natural servant races. Natural servant isn't exactly a compliment. Goblins and hobgoblins had been enslaved by orcs for at least 1,000 years. Under that much brutality and brainwashing, servility was baked into their DNA. Show weakness? They're bloodthirsty monsters. Show overwhelming force? They become the continent's best laborers, sleeping 30 minutes a day and competing with each other for the master's approval. Extremely useful, which is why I'd ordered Raina to keep sending malicious sweeps into the forest. More captured greenskins meant more workers for logging and quarrying. 500 new serfs arriving in 2 weeks too. Add it all up. Should be enough to finish the city walls before winter. My expression hardened. Winterhold Valley had 9 months of winter. Less than 2 months until it started. And northern winters weren't just about cold. Greenskins, gnolls, ogre tribes in the nearby mountains. None of them farmed or stockpiled food. When cold reduced prey, they'd come raiding. Plus there were ice ghosts, evil elemental creatures that regular weapons couldn't even scratch. Sunflowers are the key to everything. With sunflowers, my city keeps functioning through winter. With sunflowers, even a serf with a pitchfork can fight ice ghosts. Mind made up. I scarfed down the rest of my stew rice. Clothes ready? Let's get dressed and head out. Ready? Let me just change. Sherry bent over to put folded clothes into a drawer, and in that thin sleep dress. Let's just say a flash of green lace gave me some creative thoughts. But the kitchen session was still fresh enough that I maintained composure. Actually, speaking of lace, I never collected royalties from the family on that, did I? Fun fact. My previous life wasn't all worthless. The Ice Prince brand lace lingerie that was currently a sensation across all 7 kingdoms? My invention. I designed it purely to enhance my own debauchery back then. The cringy brand name was the old Butler Fisher's idea, trying to simultaneously protect the white mane reputation and kiss up to me. But now I actually needed money. The family gave me a dozen chests of gold coins as startup capital, which would last most pioneer lords' years. For my rate of spending on wars and construction, surrounded by greenskins and ogres and gnolls, none of which dropped gold when you killed them, that money might not even last until next year. Once things stabilize, I'll set up a lace lingerie factory right here in Winterhold Valley. Oh, and I heard there's a type of silkworm here whose silk is crystal clear and elastic. Maybe I should invent stockings too. Having a gorgeous maid bending over to change clothes in your bedroom does things to a man's creative direction. But soon enough, Sherry was suited up in her white riding robe and signature red hooded cloak. I grabbed the crystal jar containing the fairy, and we rode out to the cave system. The Sunward Flower Cave wasn't the same one where the warlock orc had given his big speech. This one was north of the moon apricot tree, separated by just a stretch of green meadow. I'd designated this as the castle site yesterday, so construction was already underway this morning. Busy atmosphere everywhere. Foremen shouting orders, horse-drawn carts unloading stone blocks quarried by hobgoblins and shaped by human craftsmen using a gunno-made rock polisher that Aurora had thoughtfully included in our supplies. The polisher was entry-level. My budget was tight thanks to the white mane, figure it out yourself, tradition, and Aurora was just a minor city lord without deep pockets. But I wasn't trying to build a palace overnight. My current goal, A small stone castle with an interrogation basement, 2 above-ground floors, living room and kitchen. On the first, bedroom with a panoramic view on the second. And most importantly, the perimeter had to enclose both the cave system and the moon apricot tree. Everything else could expand outward later. The whole valley was mine anyway. Workers spotted me riding past and immediately stood to salute. Lord Ron, good day. Merciful Lord, please take care of yourself. Loyalty. Genuine respect on every face. Not surprising, Raina had read out the casualty benefits announcement at the square this morning. Death compensation, disability support, special care for the wounded. That kind of treatment was nearly unheard of on this continent. Everyone was fired up. Loyalty meters maxed out. I was used to it by now, but Sherry's eyes were shining with even more adoration than usual. She nestled back against me on the horse. Normally, that would have been enough for her. But remembering what happened in the kitchen, something shifted. Checking that nobody was watching too closely, her face went red, and then her fluffy little rabbit tail pressed backward against my stomach. Very intimate. I froze for a second, then felt the warmth of her body against mine, and my eyes started smoldering. You're playing with fire, Sherry. Doesn't young master like it? Did you just talk back? Getting bold. Are we? She rubbed her ears against my chin and neck. My fists clenched, but we were in public, so I could only glare at her with barely contained hunger behind the sternness. She saw right through it, blushed deeper, didn't move away, pressed a little more, then tilted her face up to my ear and whispered shyly, young master. Starting today, can Sherry be your alarm clock? I'll crawl under the covers very quietly on my knees. You. Home. Wait for me. Being seduced by your own maid in broad daylight? Unacceptable. But honestly, after a lifetime of war, and probably another lifetime of it ahead, I genuinely treasured these moments with Sherry. Still, today had bigger priorities. We rode through the castle construction site, flirting and laughing the whole way, then entered the forest and reached a small camp. Young master, welcome. Raisha saluted elegantly, several female guards behind her. Everything quiet in there. I dismounted with Sherry and handed the reins to a guard. Raisha nodded, then her brow creased. The sunward flowers are untouched. But this morning, deep in one of the tunnels, we found an elemental bear egg. An elemental bear egg. My eyes went wide. Elemental bears are one of the North's legendary giant beast units. Top-tier combat power, right up there with Frostheart beasts. But they're insanely rare. They're bizarre creatures born from the fusion of magical elements and flesh. A high-rank bear magical beast can only produce an elemental bear embryo under incredibly specific conditions, specific timing, specific location, specific emotional state, specific mana fluctuations during conception. And here's the kicker. One of those specific emotional conditions is that the mother cannot have been enslaved by humans, meaning artificial breeding is basically impossible. Pure luck of the draw. Lead the way. Yes, young master. Raisha posted guards at the cave entrance, lit a torch, and went ahead. I held Sherry's hand and followed. The cave went deep. Dark. No air currents. A dead-end tunnel with only one exit. Made sense. Both the sunward flowers and the elemental bear egg pointed toward the ancient dragon cemetery, but that cemetery wasn't physically underground right now. It existed in a spatial rift beneath Winterhold Valley, sealed away. Only by breaking the seal would it materialize in the real world. That's why hundreds of years of exploration found nothing. God Eye Lake. This cave, the whole area, just normal soil and rock layers above a hidden dimensional pocket. We passed through a tunnel fork, Raisha killed the torch, and golden light flooded the passage ahead. Sunward flowers. The entire tunnel, ceiling, floor, walls, was blanketed in brilliant golden blooms, turning the space into a glowing corridor. This many, my heart soared. Then Raisha carefully walked to the deepest part and bent down to pick up a massive egg covered in golden runes. Young master, look, it's that big. First time seeing an elemental bear egg. This thing was half as tall as Raisha herself. When she arched backward to lift it, the egg compressed her significant assets into a rather eye-catching shape. I was here on business. No ulterior motives. But I looked. Twice. She caught me looking. A blush crept across her elegant half-elf face. But before either of us could dwell on it, I pulled out the fairy's crystal jar. Records say elemental bear eggs shouldn't be moved before hatching. Leave it there. Let's deal with the sunward flowers first. Yes. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face. She'd noticed how close Sherry and I were, but I hadn't given her the same kind of attention. Her pointed ears drooped slightly, but I'd seen it. Raisha and Reyna weren't just guard captains. They were the personal attendant consorts my mother had chosen for me. Raised from childhood with one purpose, serve Ron Whitemane. Every skill they learned, every piece of knowledge they acquired, all to complement my weaknesses. In my previous life, when I never became a lord, the twins joined the church as nuns. They died in the Blood Night. Never married. The more I remember, the more I realize how much I wasted. When Raisha walked past me, I reached out and ruffled her hair, brushing aside a few golden strands from her knight's shoulder armor. Her eyes went wide with shock. I leaned to her ear. Don't overthink things. You're both precious to me. When the castle's done, you and Reyna are moving into, Her composed elegance shattered for exactly 1 second. Emotions surged through those golden eyes. Shock, then joy, then something deeper, warmer. She sniffed, recomposed herself, and placed her hand on her chest. Thank you, young master. Raisha understands. Good. Go help Sherry with the fairy. Yes. She turned and walked away. Still graceful. Still elegant. And then her foot caught on a vine, and she nearly face-planted. She caught herself instantly, core muscles firing, posture recovered. But those pointed ears had gone completely scarlet. This girl, I smiled. She and Sherry were both curvy types who got flustered around me, but their personalities couldn't be more different. Sherry was the warm, talkative, clingy rabbit-eared wife. Raisha was the quiet, dignified half-elf knight who followed silently on horseback, content just being near. Both nice in their own way. Sherry, of course, had seen our little moment. She sidled up the instant I walked over. Glancing at Raisha's profile as she arranged flowers, Sherry whispered with a shy grin. Young master really is a big wolf. Always going for the ones with big mountains. Jealous? Young master, don't be silly. Just being by your side is already Sherry's dream come true. Besides, she blushed, stood on tiptoes, and breathed into my ear, a big monster like young master. Sherry can't handle you alone anyway. Then she lifted her knee and slid it up along my inner thigh. Extremely bold. But just as my eyes started burning and I was ready to throw caution to the wind, no can do. Young master, she smiled sweetly. The fairy jar seal is already broken. We need to cast the spell quickly, and she pranced away to Raisha's side, throwing one last teasing glance over her shoulder. This little seductress. I glared at her with zero actual anger and walked over. After that exchange, the atmosphere between the three of us loosened up considerably. Both women chatted around me about the fairy and the flowers. At my nod, Sherry unscrewed the crystal bottle. A small white glow drifted out. Through the luminescence, I could see a tiny winged naked girl. Fairies, originally a species that lived alongside high elves. Think goblins to orcs, but less violent. When humanity rose, fairies defected to our side. Why? Fairies naturally gather mana and nature energy. High elves were mana addicts, literally addicted to magical power. During high mana eras, the elves just siphoned fairies' power and made them 10 moon wells and magic plants. But during low mana periods, fairies became food. Humans needed elemental power too, but we weren't mana dependent and had zero interest in eating fairies. So fairies flocked to us. The High Elf Court was not happy about this. But humanity had just finished establishing the 7 kingdoms and 4 borders. Our military prowess was at an all-time peak. Even greenskins and proud dragons flinched when they saw humans back then. When the first human king personally visited the Eternal Forest's elf court, the elf king panicked and signed what historians still mock as the humiliating, sovereignty-surrendering fairy free trade agreement. Now fairies were woven into every aspect of human life. We protect them. They cultivate magic plants and enrich farmland. One important note, despite looking like winged humanoids, fairies aren't related to humans at all. They can't even talk. The human form is just mimicry, like how domesticated dogs developed more expressive facial muscles than wolves to better communicate with humans. And fairies are shameless suck-ups. This one flew out, stretched lazily, scanned the 3 of us, identified me as the boss based on positioning, flew to my cheek, gave me a little air kiss. and then batted her eyes coyly. Flattering little creature. I shook my head with a grin, examined her more carefully, and said, extremely high elemental concentration, very refined. Top-tier potential fairy. Sherry, form a contract with this one. This whole area is your responsibility. Yes, young master. Sherry raised her fingertip and chanted the fairy druid incantation. Green energy bloomed from her body. The fairy squealed with delight and zipped to Sherry's fingertip, biting down gently to initiate the bond. Fairy druids aren't fighters or healers. They specialize purely in fairy cultivation. A contracted fairy grows faster under their care, and the fairy's natural mana-gathering ability accelerates the druid's growth in return. Win-win. But there was another step. As the contract materialized between them as a floating construct of mana and nature energy, I said, Sherry, use trait modification now. During contract formation, the fairy adapts to your energy signature. That's when it's easiest to alter its trait expression. Yes, young master. She focused, raised her left hand, and green trait modification energy flowed from her fingertips. The fairy let out excited little coos as foundational life code runes appeared across its body. It was cooperating. Fairies might not be geniuses, but they wanted to evolve into rare, high-tier, elemental forms just as much as we wanted them to. With the fairy's active assistance, Sherry's progress sped up. Following the light attribute fairy characteristics she'd studied in books, she carefully adjusted the white fairy's trait runes one by one. Beside me, Raisha clapped a hand over her mouth in shock. Trait modification. She knew exactly what she was looking at. As a top honors graduate from the Royal Academy, how could she not recognize this ability? How could she not understand its rarity? Put it this way, if Sherry wanted to, she could become the Imperial Court's honored guest tomorrow. After the shock came joy. After joy came something softer. Raisha looked at me, and her eyes filled with warmth and security. I hadn't asked her to leave. That meant I considered her one of my own. One of his own. For a half-elf rejected by both human and elven society, taken in as a baby by my mother and raised at my side, those words meant more than anything in the world. Her emotions were running wild. Even her normally poised hands were fidgeting at her waist. Then an arm wrapped around her. She went completely rigid, but the hand just rested on her waist. Nothing else. She peeked sideways and found me quietly watching Sherry work. No acknowledgement in my eyes. No grand gesture. Just naturally holding her close, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Did young master sense what I was feeling? She didn't ask out loud, just carefully leaned into me. She liked this. The comfortable silence. Words unnecessary. And so did I. We stood together, watching Sherry work. But soon, both our brows furrowed. Even with Sherry's genius talent, trait modification, and the fairy druid class, completely converting a fairy from attributeless to the ultra-rare light attribute in a single day was nearly impossible. As time passed, the white fairy's initial comfortable moaning shifted to strained, then pained. Sherry went from focused to drenched in sweat to visibly shaking. I nodded at Raisha. She drew her sword and executed a clean sword of reckoning, severing the mana link between Sherry and the fairy. Eek! Sherry toppled backward. I was already behind her, catching her easily. You dummy. The fairy's stupid, but are you? These things have low intelligence. When they find energy they like, they instinctively latch on and drain. Next time, hold back. Otherwise it'll suck you completely dry before letting go, and you'll be bedridden for 2 weeks. My tone was harsh. But Sherry felt the worry underneath, blushed through her sweat-soaked face, and wriggled in my arms. Sherry just wanted to help young master faster. You've been getting way too spoiled lately. I rolled my eyes but scooped her up anyway. Though I have to say, this fairy reminds me of you. Reminds you of Sherry? She wrapped her arms around my neck, blinking curiously. I leaned to her ear. Both the type that clamps down and won't let go. Wants to swallow the whole thing. Young master. Her face went nuclear. Hands flew to cover her cheeks. Beside us, Raisha, who'd heard every word, turned equally crimson but didn't dare make a sound. She just stood at attention, hands behind her back, staring intently at her own shoes. Though beyond the embarrassment, there was a glimmer of longing in her eyes. She wanted the castle built soon, wanted to move in, wanted to be around me every day. Women's hearts, deeper than the ocean. I set Sherry down on a rock, teased her a bit more, handed her the water flask, then walked over to the sunward flower-covered wall. The well-fed white fairy was now fast asleep on a flower bud. With each tiny breath, the surrounding sunward flowers pulsed, brightening, dimming, brightening, dimming. Like a heartbeat of light, Raisha came over to observe. Young master, it's already developed basic light element absorption. The range is small and the pull is weak, but it's enough to influence these sunward flowers. The more promising ones will gradually evolve into sun flowers over time. Also, while its light element coverage is limited, its attraction for regular mana and nature energy is still enormous, enough to cover from here to the farmland by the logging site. Crops planted near this area will become more nutritious, possibly even undergo evolution. Truly worthy of a top-tier fairy specially selected by the family. She was impressed. Most barons and viscounts had maybe 2 or 3 fairies total, and none anywhere near this quality. As for crop evolution, plants could level up just like anything else. The golden wheat Sherry had found was already noble grade, but above it was golden sun wheat. Long-term human consumption of golden sun wheat not only strengthened the body but enhanced battle aura absorption efficiency. Golden sun wheat needed light element-rich environments to grow. And now, even though the fairy hadn't fully transformed into a light fairy yet, it already had light element gathering ability. Any golden wheat planted near this cave could potentially evolve into golden sun wheat. I could barely contain my excitement. Send orders, fence off this entire area. Split the highest concentration zones half and half between flower cultivation and farmland. Yes, young master. Raisha whipped out her little notebook to record everything. Business handled. I finally turned to look at the elemental bear egg I'd been deliberately ignoring. I wonder what hatches from an elemental bear egg soaked in light energy. Every recorded elemental bear in history was an ice rock type, because the north was saturated with ice elements. But this egg was sitting in a bath of sunward flowers and an emerging light fairy. I stared at the golden rune-covered egg nestled among the glowing flowers, and my anticipation grew even stronger. But I wasn't in a rush. The situation was stable now. The sunward flowers, the golden wheat, the elemental bear egg. All they needed was time in this light-rich environment. Let them grow. Peaceful days, one after another. A month slipped by before I knew it. Morning. I stood on the second floor of my castle, looking out the window at a town that was actually starting to look like a town. After wiping out the Greenskin tribe, development had kicked into high gear. In the distance, over 6,000 acres of golden wheat were sprouting. A sea of green stretching from the Danuna River on the left all the way to the black forest edge on the right. Watermills lined the river tributaries. Classic peaceful European countryside vibes. Closer in, a main road cut through the farmland toward a 6-meter-high city gate with soldiers standing guard. Behind it, walls encircling the entire settlement. I'd named this city Frost Breath, meaning both the place where frost breathes and the place where frost ceases, dual interpretation. I like that. The walls were still a bit short. Greenskin elite units like giant orcs stood 3 meters tall and could jump high enough to slap a wall-top archer in the face. But that was fine. First, construction was ongoing. Goal, 10 meters before winter. Second, quality mattered more than height. Most city walls looked impressive but were dirt core with a stone shell. Mine were solid white stone blocks throughout, bonded with special adhesive clay from the family. Practically indestructible. Inside the walls, the town was taking real shape. Main road from the gate led past shops run by disabled militia veterans, blacksmiths, tailors, a veterans restaurant. Then you hit the central crossroads and Citizen Square. Town hall facing the square. Right road, bustling residential district. Left road, quiet guard quarters. Past the guard quarters, through a peaceful little grove, and you reach the Lord's castle with the moon apricot tree standing in the front courtyard. I'd completely redesigned the layout. The old Citizen Square used to be right in front of my tree, but I didn't want to live in a noisy town center. So I moved the whole square away and placed my castle in the tranquil eastern section. The castle was small, just 2 above-ground floors, shorter than the moon apricot tree, but the views were gorgeous. One tower study overlooked the Danuna River. The master bedroom caught the fragrance from the tree's blossoming branches. Sherry had planted a garden behind the castle, and at the garden's far end was the cave entrance, all enclosed within castle walls. The cave sat at the foot of Snowblow Mountain, its tunnels running through the mountain's base and underground. The whole castle was basically built against the mountainside. Layout from south to north. Front courtyard with moon apricot, tree castle rear garden, cave entrance Snowblow Mountain. The mountain was covered in white ice maples, beautiful northern scenery. Once I had the labor to spare, I planned to wall off the entire mountain as private grounds. Security? The elemental bear would be a natural guard once hatched. Plus, I was planning to find a magic plant for the mountain before winter. Rebirth didn't just give me geopolitical foresight. My brain was packed with locations of hidden treasures. But the immediate priority was still getting stronger. Another week passed. Afternoon. Bright sunshine. I was sparring with Raisha under the moon apricot tree, shirtless and drenched in sweat. Gray-gold hair clinging to my shoulders. Summer in Winterhold Valley, relatively mild temperatures. I caught her great sword on my long sword, the force driving me into a deep horse stance. And then, I felt my battle aura hit a critical threshold. I flipped the blade. Ice blue aura erupted outward, forcing Raisha to leap back. She blinked. Then her face lit up. Young master, another breakthrough? Bronze 7-star. That fast? Not surprising to me. First, I had exceptional innate talent. My previous self didn't start training until his 30s and still became a legend. Second, breathing techniques could only be trained after age 18, and battle aura was essentially willpower and resolve made physical. I had both in spades. Combined with the frost breath judgment, a legendary tier hereditary technique, progress was explosive. I raised my right arm and casually slashed toward a stone wall. An ice blue aura crescent shot out. Boom. Didn't break the wall, still just bronze 7-star, and aura weakened rapidly after leaving the body. But a crescent of ice crystals formed across the moss-covered stone. This kind of firepower. I could hold my own against ordinary silver-rank professionals now. Satisfying. But the next instant, ice tendrils crawled through my meridians and covered my entire right forearm. Bone-deep cold hit me like plunging into a frozen lake. Frost breath judgment was devastatingly powerful, with an incredible passive trait, 24-hour nonstop ice tempering of the body. But everything had a price. When I'd summoned the Wrath of Winter's sword at the militia selection, people thought it was a hereditary treasure weapon. It wasn't. The Frostwinter sword lineage didn't have an ancestral sword. What we did have was a life-bound ice sword that crystallized inside our bodies during cultivation. Outsiders saw every famous Frostwinter heir wielding a similar ice blade and assumed it was passed down. Wrong. Each one forged their own. The sword grew with my aura, but overusing Judgment aura triggered Ice Vein backlash from the sword's surface energy. Usually not dangerous, the backlash actually strengthened and widened my meridians through a break-and-rebuild process. But cold was cold. Right then, a warm, soft embrace engulfed my frozen arm. Young master, honestly, you trained all morning and you're still pushing it. Raisha was scolding me, but her body was pressed firmly against my arm, channeling her own warm battle. Aura to drive out the chill. She led me to a garden bench, sat down, wrapped my arm in hers, and even clamped my hand between her thighs for extra warmth. Her pointed ears were so red they looked ready to burst. But she powered through the embarrassment, focusing on warming me up. When my expression finally relaxed, the worry in her eyes eased too. Then, after a hesitation, young master, maybe tonight, you should transfer the ice sword into my body. I waved that off immediately. No, wait until you reach silver rank. You're only bronze 9-star. Tempering the sword would be too much strain. Let me explain. The Ice Vein backlash problem wasn't a secret within the family. Ancestors had developed 2 derivative breathing techniques specifically to address it. Raisha practiced one called the Sword-Dwelling Ancient Pact. In simple terms, I could transfer my ice sword into her body for her to nurture. Through regular, intimate interaction, the accumulated aura would flow back to me. The process would strengthen Raisha's physical potential through the sword's energy, but since she lacked the Frostwinter bloodline, the pain would be doubled. I refused without hesitation. Sensing my protectiveness, Raisha's elegant face flushed. She wasn't the smooth-talking type, so she just squeezed my arm tighter. Then Sherry's head popped out of the second-floor window, wearing her cook's outfit. Young master, lunch is ready. Coming. I headed inside with Raisha. Both twins had moved into the castle by now, but while Raisha was quiet and dignified, her sister Reina was the total opposite, couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. She'd taken Kakashu and a militia squad into the Black Forest this morning to hunt greenskins. Worked fine for me. I didn't need a crowd of servants. Sherry handled all my daily needs, and I preferred keeping outsiders away from home. Official business went to the town hall anyway. The dining room was small and cozy. Fireplace crackling, 3 of us chatting over lunch, sipping ice flower wine, watching moon apricot petals drift past the window. Peaceful. After lunch, we visited the cave together. A fuzzy white glow came bobbing toward us the moment we entered. The fairy. After over a month of Sherry's constant trade adjustments, the formerly attributeless white fairy was transitioning toward a light fairy. Its aura had shifted from pure white to a soft duckling yellow. It immediately zipped around my legs in a circle, shameless little suck-up, and only flew to Sherry's shoulder after I gave its tiny chin a poke. Then it nuzzled Sherry's cheek and babbled in its incomprehensible fairy language. None of us could understand fairy speak. Fairies had somewhat more intelligence than dogs and definite emotions, but their sounds weren't a real language system. Nobody had ever cracked the translation. But after a month together, Sherry, as a fairy druid, could roughly interpret some of the babbling. She was smiling and chatting with it. We walked deeper. I crouched to check the elemental bear egg. Based on historical records, elemental bears were born alongside winter's arrival. At this mana density, about 1 more month. Isha, keep a close eye on this. Yes, young master. Being called by her nickname made Raisha's eyes crinkle happily. I moved to inspect the sunward flowers. Under the fairy's influence and Sherry's month-plus of care, they were thriving despite being underground. Leaves fat and healthy, petals glowing brighter. So close. If the fairy can complete its transformation into a light fairy by month's end, I might have my own sunflower garden before winter. I was toying with the flower stems, feeling a touch of impatience, when Sherry suddenly looked up from her fairy conversation. Young master, she says she's already at the transformation threshold. She just needs 1 more sunstone to complete the evolution into a light fairy. What? Raisha gasped too. Seriously? She's that close? Sherry held the fairy up by its tiny feet, examining it from every angle. Her internal trait runes are almost fully modified. The books never mentioned fairies needing sunstones for transformation, so I thought my modifications weren't finished yet. She stuck out her tongue apologetically. I waved it off with a smile. Trait modification is so rare there's barely any documentation. You couldn't have known. But, a sunstone, huh? I was already planning a trip to Whitestone City to pick up the new batch of serfs. I'll check the auction house while I'm there. Whitestone City? Can Sherry come too? No. Instant puppy eyes. But before the pout could fully form, I pulled her into my arms. Dummy. I'm joking. Isha, you're coming too. We'll leave Ina in charge while we're gone. That might not be wise, young master. Ina's personality is. Raisha said the responsible thing, but her eyes were screaming excitement. Her hands were wringing at her waist. Her sister was energetic and impulsive, sure, but the surrounding enemies were dealt with and Reina was a top graduate from the Royal Management Academy. Babysitting a startup town of barely 200 people for a few days was basically being a class monitor. But Raisha was the type to say no while meaning yes. And I knew that perfectly well. I pulled her into my arms alongside Sherry. Stop being difficult. Go pack when we get home. We leave tomorrow morning. Raisha understands. She leaned against my right side, face to face with Sherry at close range. Both women were blushing furiously. But here's the nice part. Zero jealousy from either of them. Not just because of my status or their feelings for me, but because after a month of living together, they genuinely respected each other's abilities and character. Harmonious household. Happy Lord. I did one final check on the elemental bear egg, then took both of them back to the castle to prepare for tomorrow's trip. 3 days later. Noon. Wheels rolling through buzzing forest insects on the Mountain Ridge Road to Whitestone City. Northern climate is weird. Outside of long winter years, it's generally spring in March, peak summer in May, and winter starts at the end of June. Yeah, 9 months of winter. Fun place. I pulled the curtain aside and got blasted by a wave of grass-scented heat. Whitestone City was glinting in the harsh sun below, like a bright gem set in green fields. Finally, almost there. Someday I need to clear out all the beasts and hostiles along this route and build a proper road. Oh, and these damn poplar fluffs. Cut them all down. The curtain had been open for 30 seconds and my head was already covered in floating white fuzz. My nose tickled and I sneezed. Sherry scooted over and started plucking the fluff from my hair with delicate fingers. Young master seems to be in a great mood today. Is it because you're about to see City Lord Aurora? As a full moon divine rabbit ancient species, Sherry always carried this faint sweet fragrance, like moon apricot blossoms. I flopped sideways and laid my head on her soft, plush thighs. In your eyes, am I nothing but a woman-obsessed pervert? Sherry never said that. She was massaging my shoulders while denying it, but the teasing smile at the corner of her eyes gave her away completely. I reached up and flicked her plump lower lip. Talking back? Open up, I'm sorry. The little rabbit obediently bit down. Then I laughed and said, you shameless bunny, getting bolder every day. I was actually thinking about the bear forest. Bear forest? On the other side of the carriage, Raisha looked up from her book, fruit in one hand. Young master, are you going to see Lord Siddhav? Yeah, the farmland's mostly developed, but we're badly short on craftsmen, engineers, technical workers. Whitestone City's too small to help with that, and probably doesn't have high-end items like sunstones either. Time to call in the cavalry from Uncle's place. I adjusted my head to a comfier position in Sherry's lap. Under the Whitemane family's rule, the North had 3 major non-Whitemane Duke territories and 5 Marquis territories. After 1,000 years of intermarriage, all 9 great families formed a tight network with Whitemane at the absolute center. My mother was the previous generation's eldest daughter of the Kashu Duke family, the North's 3rd most powerful house. The Kashu stronghold was in Bear Forest, and they'd been Whitemane's core allies for a millennium. Siddhav, the man the northern people called the Bear King, was my actual uncle, my mom's little brother. But in my previous life, the Kasha family was destroyed before the Whitemane massacre. The bastard who betrayed uncle. He probably hasn't been adopted into the Kasha family yet. My brow furrowed and killing intent flashed in my eyes. Then the front curtain lifted. Young master, we've arrived at Whitestone City. Got it. I shelved the uncle situation for Bear Forest and focused on the immediate task, dealing with the greenskin prisoners being escorted behind our convoy. Yeah, greenskin prisoners. A lot of them. After the Deer Forest battle, I'd captured a decent number. But then Kakashu and Reina turned out to be absolute combat addicts who went greenskin hunting every day for fun, and suddenly our territory had nearly 300 captive greenskins. Too many. There's an old continental saying, greenskin laborers are excellent, but never let them think they're stronger than you. Their servility toward the strong is proportional to their cruelty toward the weak. But greenskins were a hard currency in human lands. Construction projects needed them, and certain nobles with special tastes enjoyed partying with them. They'd sell for good money. Perfect, sell them off for serfs and resources. As we rolled through the streets, pedestrians saw the massive chain of greenskins behind us and practically fell over themselves getting out of the way. That's got to be 30-plus hobgoblins. What kind of army has that much firepower? Keep your voice down. See the crest on the carriage? That's Whitemane. Wait, that's Lord Ron. At the city gate, a certain beautiful city lord was already waiting. Young Master Ron, it's been too long. I trust you've been well. Aurora glided over and curtsied elegantly, lifting her skirts. We're past formalities at this point. I stepped down and gave her a quick look. Still stunning. Flame-red wavy hair, red dress, Facelin family ice-white skin that the red only made more luminous. Figure rivaling Sherry's, and the curtsy was doing very distracting things to her neckline. But the dark circles under her eyes told a different story. I grinned. Looks like the greenskin situation really did a number on you. A tired but grateful smile. Was it that obvious? I put on so much powder before coming out. But truly, I need to thank you again. Without your warning, Whitestone City would probably be ruins by now. She led me into the city, and I could see the lingering fear in her eyes. After I'd tipped her off about goblins in Nottingham Forest, she'd sent scouts. First came the report of 2 mid-sized goblin tribes. Bad enough. But then, as bounty hunting adventurers pushed deeper into the forest, far worse news arrived. There was an ORC tribe forming in there. Orc tribes far outclass hobgoblins and goblins. And Aurora wasn't a true lord with a breathing technique. Her soldiers were just regular troops. If that orc tribe had matured, Whitestone City would have been eaten. Literally. She'd burned through the Fasselin family's century-old savings, arming militia, hiring adventurers, and barely managed to drive the orcs away. A month of terror and exhaustion. I caught her sneaking a grateful glance at my profile. Then she noticed me sending Rayshaw to handle the greenskin prisoner paperwork and saw the fear in those greenskins' eyes when they looked at me. Something complicated flickered across her face, but I had business to handle. The 500 serfs I wrote about, they ready? Her expression stiffened slightly. The Merchant Guild delivered them, but, she turned pink down to her neck and only spoke after checking that just Sherry was nearby. They've been delivered, but I'm currently unable to cover the payment. You'll need to handle the transaction directly. She looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her. Admitting you're broke in adult social settings was excruciating. I just raised an eyebrow and smiled. Between dealing with greenskins and arranging supplies and serfs for me, you've really been put through the ringer. We'd reached the slave market entrance. The caravan manager spotted me from a distance, but was too terrified of my reputation to approach. When I walked over, he dropped to his knees and kissed my boot, then fawned his way through welcoming us inside. What I didn't notice was Aurora freezing behind me. She slowly raised her head, staring at my back with those crimson phoenix eyes. The last time someone had said something like that to her was before her father died. The Fasselin family was brutally patriarchal, and she was a bastard daughter who didn't even know her birth mother. The only reason she became city lord was because a beast tide killed every eligible male heir, and nobody else wanted the headache of running a failing border city. Her family elders had never acknowledged her abilities. They just wanted her married off, preferably to some 60-year-old earl for political connections. Her daily efforts and sacrifices, nobody cared, especially lately, with the immense pressure nearly crushing her. This very morning, she'd overheard family elders deliberately talking loud enough for her to hear, accusing her of fabricating the orc threat to embezzle family funds. If the intelligence hadn't come from a white man, she probably couldn't have mobilized the family treasury at all. Humans are strange creatures. You can grit your teeth and march through darkness alone for a very long time. But the moment someone shows genuine concern, everything you've been holding back comes flooding up. My casual remark hit her like a stone dropped in still water. She stood there with her head slightly bowed, red hair half hiding her face, nose twitching. I'd walked a few steps ahead before realizing she wasn't following. Not coming. Sorry. She snapped back, tucked her hair behind her ear, blinked rapidly, and caught up. By the time she reached me, her composure was fully restored. That noble aura, the gracious smile that welcomed without intimidating. Inside the market, the Gesenki caravan from the Eastern Territories had solid inventory. Not as impressive as the 200 elite serfs my family had handpicked. Those guys could have competed in bodybuilding championships, but these were healthy, bright-eyed, sturdy workers. I did a quick once-over, sent Sherry to check medical reports and sign contracts. The caravan manager was practically vibrating with joy at landing a big deal with someone like me. Young Master Ron is truly as decisive and generous as the legends say. The North is blessed to have someone like. Less flattery. Do you have sunstones? Sunstones? He blinked. No, my lord. We don't carry high-tier items too. We don't keep them in our traveling inventory. He'd almost said, to a remote backwater like this, but caught Aurora standing next to me and swerved hard. After thinking, he added, however, I believe Black Rock City has one. Black Rock City. Aurora leaned in. Young Master Ron, Black Rock City's Lord, Earl Samwell, was one of Lord Clade's old subordinates. Clade. Full name, Clade Whitemane. My beloved great-grandfather. The current Lionheart King. I shook my head. I know. Old Sam even came to my 10th birthday party. Big jolly fat man who kissed me and left drool all over my face. Very memorable. But Black Rock City's too far. A month-round trip. The Merchant and Aurora both flinched at me casually calling the legendary Mountain Earl Samwell a big jolly fat man. What about Windroar City? Any intel on that? Windroar City? In Bear Forest? The Merchant perked up. I don't have confirmed reports of sunstones there, but the Ironhammer Merchant Guild is sending a major caravan through the Silver Road soon. They're one of the 3 great guilds. From the Dwarven Iron Furnace Mountains, they should have sunstones. The Silver Road was the only route through the Silver Mountains that could handle large caravans year-round, running southeast to northwest. Bear Forest Windroar City sat at the eastern entrance, making it a regular stop for major foreign trade caravans and big auctions. Iron Hammer Guild should definitely have sunstones. They're mined in the Iron Furnace Mountains. Plus, dwarven smiths and miners are famous across the entire continent. Maybe I can poach some dwarves while I'm at it. While I was getting excited, Aurora spoke up hesitantly. Young Master Ron, are you heading to Windroar City? Yeah. Why? She wrestled with herself for a moment, then pushed through. I also need to visit my aunt in Windroar City. If it's not too much trouble, could I travel with you? Asking a favor. Excruciatingly awkward. Her ice-white neck turned completely red. But she was stubborn. She held my gaze and kept her back straight, clinging to whatever shred of noble dignity she had left. I understood immediately. Traveling together with someone of MY status sent a political signal. The Fasselin family would borrow my prestige just by association. But noble politics were brutal. A family of their standing using the White Mane name? That debt would be impossible to repay. And she already owed me for the goblin warning. She knew this. I knew she knew this. I blinked. She took a deep breath and explained, "You can see my family is financially ruined. Winter is coming in just over a month, and there could be another beast tide. I need my aunt's help, or we won't survive. But my uncle, Baron Lease, has always opposed my aunt staying connected to our family." She laid it all out. When I didn't respond immediately, her eyes started trembling. Fists white-knuckled. She was the proud type. The silence was killing her. Her feet started to shift, ready to flee. But then her father's deathbed words surfaced in her heart. The only person in the entire family who'd ever treated her like she mattered. Who picked her up every time the others knocked her down. Her jaw clenched. Right there, in front of the merchant and Sherry who'd just walked up, her knees started to buckle. Interesting woman. I caught her arm before she could kneel and pulled her back up. Something appreciative in my eyes. I shook my head with a wry smile. That makes 2 big favors you owe me now. I turned to the merchant. What did you just see? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, my lord. He slammed his knees into the ground. Very decisive. Honestly, I come here to sell some greenskins, and everyone I meet is either about to cry or about to kneel. What is wrong with people? I waved at the still-dazed Aurora. All right, I'm done here. Go prepare your caravan and catch up. I'm leaving this afternoon. I left with a very curious-looking Sherry. Behind us, a merchant whose legs were too weak to stand, and a red-haired woman whose face was still flushed with embarrassment, but whose expression had finally, visibly, lightened. What I didn't notice was the subtle new something in Aurora's eyes as she watched me walk away. We left Whitestone City that afternoon, heading north. The Fasselin caravan followed behind. And yeah, they really were broke. I could see Aurora's personal jewelry packed in some of those crates. No shame in it. Asking relatives for help was never easy. As for why she didn't just ask me directly, I had the prestige, but not the military power yet. Helping the Fasselins survive a winter beast tide would mean calling in favors from the main Whitemane family. And going through me to ask the Whitemans? Honestly, I wouldn't have minded. As the sole heir of the Frostwinter sword, my family spoiled me rotten. When I was a kid and said I wanted to see stars, they literally kidnapped 2 grand mages specializing in astronomical magic and made them cast high-tier meteor spells for my entertainment. But Aurora definitely didn't have the nerve to make that kind of ask. Business wrapped up nicely. Sold 100+ greenskins for over 5,000 gold coins, covering nearly half the serf costs. The 500 serfs would be held by the Gesenki caravan until I returned from Bear Forest. Everything going smoothly. Mood, excellent. I celebrated by breaking out the hot pot in the carriage with Sherry and Rayshaw. Lively, warm, delicious. Next stop, Bear Forest, Windroar City.